Good evening. I'd like to call to order the February 14th, 2024 City Council meeting to order. Could we have Mayor Pro Tem please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for Councilmember Ernesto Gutierrez.
And happy Valentine's Day. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God, thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. Tonight, as we begin Ash Wednesday, I would like to ask you, Father, to bless each and every one throughout the world. I ask you to teach us to be tolerant towards each other, to teach us respect to each other because we're all different. I ask you to give us patience, to be understanding of each other. I also ask you to teach us how to love each other during turbulent times. Today is the beginning of Lent, celebrated by Christians throughout the world. It will go on for 40 days, and it will end Easter Sunday. May this season of Lent be the beginning of your spiritual growth. Father, it is in your gracious name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Gutierrez.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Lamb is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Ross.
Here.
Mayor Carnevale.
Here. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I have no changes, Mayor.
Thank you, Charlie. City Clerk, would you please read the statement of our participation?
Sorry. Public comment is the opportunity for members of the public to comment on items that are within the City Council's jurisdiction but not on the agenda. Because of restrictions contained in California law, the City Council may not discuss or act on any item not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask a question for clarification. The mayor may also request a brief response from staff to questions raised during public comment or request that a matter be agendized for a future meeting. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. If you're a member of the public and you wish to address the City Council, please complete a request to speak form available at the entrance and submit it to the City Clerk. You'll be called upon at the appropriate time. If you have materials or other items to present to the members of the City Council, please do not approach them. All materials shall be presented to the City Clerk for distribution. We do have a few individuals that would like to speak this evening.
Thank you.
The first speaker is Steve, and I don't want to say your last name wrong, but is it Vogelsang? Okay.
City for 39 years. And anyways, I'll get to my points here. First of all, there's potholes in the city, and whether you're aware of it, if people have mentioned that there's potholes and have problems with their automobiles with the potholes, you guys are responsible for fixing their cars. Second off is the drains. I noticed at Avenida La Vista and 30th. I talked to the public works person here, and he said they've had that in the city for a while. Apparently it goes from one side of the street to the other to help get water to flow. But on 30th and La Vista, there's constant standing water, which apparently the mosquitoes apparently love. So I don't know why there's always water. Apparently it's not draining or at least drying out, so I don't understand that part. Another thing is the good old feral cats, and as a animal control person told me, they're considered community cats. And what I would like to do is have you guys get these community cats picked up, because I get asthma. They're ruining my property with their little fun droppings that they leave me. And not only that, but let's see, there's like I say, with the asthma and the smells and the treasure, but it's a problem in the city, and I can't do it. I was even saying, why don't they get traps? And the one guy said one time, the guy said it was summertime, they don't trap them because somebody might forget to tell them and they'll die in the cage, which is supposedly on me. So I think that the feral cats should be a problem, especially with people that have problems like asthma and ruining their property. Not only that, but I got Ring set up for the house for my own protection, and those guys set it off every day, all day long. It's ridiculous. The other thing is, let's see, on Tortuga, I live on Tortuga Road, and that's from Landale all the way to Date Palm. It's like a freeway. And I've told these, I said, it'd be a perfect place for the police to make a whole bunch of tickets there. But anyways, they're going 30 to 48 miles an hour all the time. Many years ago, I've even suggested speed bumps, but they said they can't do that because like emergency vehicles like fire trucks, I'm thinking those things are so high, the speed, they could go 50 and they wouldn't even feel the bump. So I don't understand that either. But another way to help is like say either the speed bumps or to have better patrol on the system. The last thing I guess would be to have a signal on Tortuga, on Date Palm, or I think it's Tachiva or Takava, however you want to spell, to help slow down the traffic on Date Palm, because those guys start flying. I've seen guys going 70 miles an hour on that place. So, and it's really hard to get out from Tortuga or Tachiva. You'd have to go all the way down to 30th to get on a signal when it's really busy, especially when Vista Chino's blocked off. But basically, that's all I have to say for today, but thank you.
Hey, Steve, thank you very much. And I noticed through your comments, there was notes being taken, and I'm sure they're going to address them for you.
Very
Check
good.
it out. But thank you for coming.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
The next speaker is Brenda Ramirez.
Hey, stranger.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. My name is Brenda Ramirez. I'm a resident of Cathedral City. I'm here on behalf of the band boosters of Cathedral City High School. Our band was at the Taste and Sounds of Cathedral City last night, our jazz band. Thank you to Councilmember Gutierrez and Gregory. I did see you guys out there supporting. We appreciate it. And for everybody else who missed it, we understand it's next to the holiday of Valentine's Day, and so probably people were trying to get that in before today's evening meeting. We just wanted to say thank you to the staff, to the city for giving us the opportunity to open that event for the city. It was great. I also wanted to thank Facilities, who is out there cleaning afterwards and is out there in the evening. We really hope that we can come back at some point and provide enough performance. I think it was a really great performance. We did take out our center stage, Mariah, who sings with the jazz band. And for those who've seen us play, that is an awesome performance. So if we could come back, I'd really greatly appreciate it. We also wanted to make the residents and everybody else know that next Tuesday we will be also performing, the jazz band will be performing at another event that's going to be a pasta fundraiser. It's $15 to attend. I did leave some flyers with Ryan here, so if you're interested in coming, please go ahead and see him after the meeting. And again, if we can come back, we'd be greatly appreciative of that opportunity. And that's it. Oh, one other thing before my time is up as a resident outside of the booster, since I'm here before you. If we could have possibly some traffic mitigation for James Workman when they get out at 30th and Date Palm. I know that's under construction. I know that nothing can be done, and it's going to take time to get finished. But after school is done, if you can have just traffic mitigation during those times when school begins and school ends, because when they get to that crosswalk, it's a chaos. And today, I pretty much stopped my car to make sure that kids got through, because there was just a bunch of kids at the crosswalk and didn't know if they could get through because of so much traffic. And that's it.
Where's the pasta going to be at?
Oh, sorry, I got so into the other part. It's going to be at the Date Palm Country Club. It's off of Date Palm Drive. And if you want to have some more information and you're on TV, you can call 760-324-0411. We are hosting this with the Rotary Club, so they're helping us fundraise some more money for the band.
Okay, thank you.
And Brent, I just want you to know, if it hadn't have been for Mosquito and Vector last night, I would have been there for sure.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Jens Mueller.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jens Mueller, Cathedral City resident. I am beside myself. January 20th, study session report, you were all lied to. You understand that, correct? Justin of Code Enforcement issued a false report. He used taxpayer funds to issue a false report into the record. He stated that on his day of counting visible trash cans, he noted no trash cans were visible on 3 streets. There are, in fact, hundreds that are visible. Are we okay with that? Do we have any oversight? Do you have oversight at all? Can you hold anyone responsible for taking our funds, the taxpayer funds, and issuing a false report? Anything you can do at all? Charlie, is there anything you can do? Is it just okay to say, here, take our money, just issue false reports? All this talk about we need more money, and here's money being wasted. 4 weeks ago, I had a meeting in Charlie's office with my wife, attended by Andrew and Ann. We discussed the trash can issue, and the first thing they said is, oh, no, we can't help you, Mr. Mueller. We have over 1,000 cases, 1,000 open cases. We issue fines and people just don't pay them. We have no mechanism in order to enforce these citations. And I come to find out, even more amazingly, is that 2 years ago, the city discharged over 1,000 of these cases. We threw up our hands and said, well, they're not paying, nothing we can do. Go forward 2 years to now, and we have the same thing now. Not one idea has been presented by Charlie, by Ann, by Andrew. We taxpayers spend millions to run this show, and not one person can come up with an idea. One idea. Call another city. Hey, how do you guys enforce your code? Oh, nothing. We don't care. We'll just issue warnings. Let's just give more warnings out. Let's give another warning out. That'll work. Warnings have not helped. Our city is awash in trash cans, and there's nothing we can do. We're powerless because we have no mechanism. It's incomprehensible to me as a business owner. Someone's got to be held to account. No one can come up with one idea on how to keep these people, how to bring that citation to fruition. Don't we need money? Don't we want a beautiful city? To me, it's incomprehensible. College-educated people, we spend millions to build this building. Now, I see it.
Okay, thanks.
And there's nothing we can do. Everyone, college-educated, and no one comes up with one idea.
I don't have any other request to speak forms at this time, but if you're a member of the public and you wish to provide comments on any item that is not on the agenda, now would be the time.
That's a no?
That's a no.
Okay, we're going to do council reports. Councilmember Gregory, start with you.
All right. It's been one of those times where we had 3 weeks between meetings, so it seems like there's been a lot that's happened when I look back on the calendar. So I know our last meeting was on January 24th, Wednesday. Immediately after that Thursday and Friday, I was in attendance for the Riverside County Transportation Commission's annual conference. It was held in Palm Springs, much like our goal setting. At that conference, the Transportation Commission went through and talked to kind of indexed all of their accomplishments for the year and what was ongoing and looking at what would continue. There was initially some discussion again about the Coachella Valley Rail. It was actually has gotten to the point where it's moving on to further steps. So the Transportation Commission wanted to do a check-in and make sure that the whole commission was behind continuing to move it forward, because we all know this is going to be a multi-billion-dollar project by the time it's done and take many, many years and frankly, a lot of bandwidth of the Transportation Commission. I'm happy that after many of us spoke, that the entire commission voted unanimously to have it as the highest priority continuing on into the future. So that continues. There, of course, was talk about a number of other roadways, particularly Interstate 15 and others in the western county that continue to also be high priorities, and also a realignment in the San Jacinto Hemet area of the some of the roadways there. So there's many things that the Transportation Commission continues to move forward. As all of you know, these projects always take a long time, and many of them were started by our predecessors, but they continue to move forward. Then on Saturday, January 27th, right after the Transportation Commission, well, we had our own goal setting at the DoubleTree in Cathedral City. We had a goal setting in Strategic Planning Commission on Saturday, January 27th. All of us, of course, were in attendance along with senior staff, and a few residents were there. And so we again looked at our accomplishments and at what we hope to emphasize along with the normal everyday work, but other things we want to emphasize in the future. And later on the agenda today, we have a document to reaffirm a summary of those items. And then starting about that time, I have been involved several days off and on with a project with the Coachella Valley Association of Governments. I think you guys are aware that I'm sitting as the current chair of the Finance Committee, which is not a normal CVAG committee, and that it doesn't have a representative from every city, but it has a couple of city elected representatives, a couple of city management staff or city finance staff on it, along with CVAG. But CVAG is in the process of instituting new software to integrate their finances, their human resources, their payroll, their permitting, much like we have done here in the city and continue to roll out. And so they're in the process of evaluating some vendors for that. And so they asked me if I would sit in on this. Ended up being a lot more meetings than I thought it was going to be. But I've had several team and Zoom meetings, and initially setting out how we were going to do the evaluations. And then now we are actually listening to vendors, and so there have been several days of those. It was supposed to be finished today, but they had to cancel some of yesterday, so it's going to continue on through Friday, and then there'll be more meetings after that to try to help CVAG narrow down which vendor they're going to go with and which modules they're going to purchase and that type of thing. So that's been a big project and ongoing, but I think it is important. The Coachella Valley Association of Governments is important to all of us for all that they do in the transportation and the homeless and the conservation energy fields in particular here, and many of us serve on committees. So they are going through growing pains, much as our city has done, but they're doing it in a very organized way, so I'm happy to be able to be part of that. And then on Saturday, February 3rd, we had our Taste of Jalisco. So I actually went to Taste of Jalisco. It was actually Friday through Sunday. And so I'm not going to go on to that if you missed it. You need to mark it on your calendar, Taste of Jalisco for next year. We did have an opportunity for the city council and the mayor very graciously had a little bit of an intro in the boxing ring, but you had to be there to see it, I guess. And right before some of the great lucha libre matches that they had on that Saturday, but there was music and food and carnivals, and I know it was well covered in the news. So our thanks, of course, to Ryan Hunt Communications and Events for making this happen, and to our vendor Sound Skills for their work, and for all the sponsors, including the Agua Caliente Tribe, who was the premier or the named sponsor of that, as they have been for some other events. And I'm sure others may have some stories about that, but that was a wonderful weekend. It is one of our, there's not a lot of them actual festivals that the city puts on that are the major festivals, but it was one of the major festivals, and I thought it came out really nice. And then on that weekend, on that Sunday, February 4th, there was a badge pinning at the fire department. I was joined by several of my colleagues at that. So I thought that was very well done, Chief. You do a good job with that. It involves the families, which is really great, where they can come and watch their family members earn the promotions and get involved in the badge pinning, those types of things. So that was happy to be able to part of that. Thank you for inviting us. Then on that Monday, February 5th, we had the Coachella Valley Association of Governments Transportation Committee. I do represent the city on that committee also, and a lot of that meeting actually was coverage of the broadband efforts that Riverside County has done and establishing the backbone, and it continues. A lot of discussion about the credit that is currently available, although it looks like it's running out of money unless it gets reauthorized by Congress, for low-income houses or households, and some preliminary work that's being done on both the middle mile and the last mile segments here in the Coachella Valley. And I know we have as one of our goals, which I think is good, and that we're of course, interested in doing what we can to promote broadband in Cathedral City, and in particular, making sure that there's equitable access for everyone in Cathedral City, and that's a common goal with the county. And I know that our Agenda Guzman and others here in the city have been involved with CVAG and their efforts, and I know that'll continue. So. And then on Thursday, February 8th, there was a ribbon cutting. The Greater Coachella Valley Chamber of Commerce and the Cathedral City Car Wash, which is down by Target, it was a kind of a rebranding because they have a new owner, new management, and so they held a ribbon cutting on that date. So that was nice to be able to participate. And of course, Dr. Stone James and others, and some of the fellow council members were at that event and welcoming this new owner, new management to the city. And they have pledged to change their business model. They've already cleaned it up, and they're concentrating more on higher quality washes instead of rushing the quantity through washes. So I wish them, as I know we all do, great success. And then it's already been shared on this last Tuesday, yesterday, Taste and Sounds of Cathedral City was its kickoff. It's going to be a regular Tuesday event. Most Tuesdays 5 to 7. I think next week is 6 to 8. So it was well attended, and I know it was kind of another Ryan Hunt project. It was kind of your baby, and he did a good job. And I think this is great. I know the council has long said, along with our big signature events, like I talked about Taste of Jalisco, that we really want to work with the Parks and Community Events Commission and others to try to put on smaller events. They've done a great job and brought yoga and other things to our city, but these small events like this weekly Taste and Sounds is another good event to come and celebrate Cathedral City, attract people to our downtown so they can have a good time and hopefully patronize some of our local businesses. So that'll continue. So watch discovercathedralcity.com if you don't know about it, and it's all listed there. And I know it has its own page too. I think it's Taste and Sounds. Okay, all right. So you can access it through the discovercathedralcity.com too. And then this morning, I traveled to Riverside, represent the city on the Riverside County Transportation Commission's regular meeting. And so they do budget annually there. And so they are beginning to doing the process for the preliminary budgeting. Today's a lot of discussion was, of course, on the estimates on the current year funding and the future year funding, much as we do. But it's important for them because that they get these projections in early, because the transit agencies across the county, like Sunline, get a majority of their funding flowing through RCTC. So when they make the tax estimates there, then that helps those agencies set their budgets, as do we. There's some local transportation funds, and so this allows them to at least give the cities a conservative estimate so that they could use it in their budgeting. So that was today, and then of course, if you were here or saw our study session, the RCTC leadership came and presented here on the traffic relief plan earlier today. So it was good to see them twice in one day, once in their place and once in our place. So that was great. Just want to mention, of course, next Monday is President's Day. It is a holiday, so City Hall will be closed. So if you have City Hall business, don't try to do it on President's Day. And we hope all of our hardworking employees enjoy a nice holiday. And then before we meet again, the Mary Nutter softball tournament will be occurring at Big League Dreams. And that actually starts on February 22nd and runs through that weekend, the 25th. It's a collegiate female softball from all over the country, and others may want to speak on that too, but it is a fun time, and if you haven't been out to Big League Dreams in a while, it's a good opportunity to go out and see some of the activities that are going on there. So I will end it with that, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Gregory. Councilmember Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to be back again. And happy Valentine's Day to everybody. I also want to wish everyone a blessed and happy Ash Wednesday to all Christians out there in the world. And since we last had our meeting, I attended the grand opening along with our mayor and also Councilmember Lamb, the grand opening of a new spa located at the Desert Princess called Grounded Body Works, which is a beautiful spot, and the views are just incredible. If you need to do any work to yourself or any massages or anything, this place is absolutely incredible. Of course, I also attended, as mentioned earlier, our city goal setting, in which we'll be talking about and working on for the next 5 years the strategic plan for our city and how to improve our city. And I also was a lucky one, along with our council member Ross here. I was a judge for tequila tasting. And after you have quite a few tequila tasting shots, you're feeling good.
Really,
But
how many did we have?
total, I forgot. I
We
think
had
it was 11.
15 shots.
I forgot after 5, but the tequila was delicious, and the event was amazing. There was kids, couples, families. There was a lot of people just walking around, getting on rides. Even though it was so cold, people didn't really seem to mind. The weather was unpredictable. It was supposed to rain, it was supposed to be windy, but it was beautiful. And like I said, a little cold. The tequila did help. I stuck around for a little while. The music was also incredible, and I think they had a really good attendance, even though the weather did not really help much, but people did go out there and enjoy themselves. The next Saturday, I also attended along with Mayor Lamb. She put this emergency preparedness program together, and it was held at the Agua Caliente Elementary School. The fire department did an amazing job out there, showing everyone how to get ready in case an emergency ever happens. I think sometimes we all think that we know everything, but by attending this program, I actually learned a lot of things and how to get a few things ready just in case of emergency, from getting your documents ready, where to meet people, having a few extra things like water and food, a can opener. You just learn a lot of great things. Later in that week, I also attended the celebration of life of a long-serving volunteer here in our city with our police department. Mayor Carnevale and I attended it. There was a few police officers that also attended that. Instead of hours, the family requested to have donations be directed to the Cancer Society and also the local Cathedral City Boys and Girls Club. The family would like to express their gratitude to our police department for having given them their father such great years. As a matter of fact, it was a complete decade with our city, and he lived a full life being a volunteer here with our police department. I also attended my weekly meeting or bi-weekly meeting with our city manager and our assistant city manager to go over tonight's agenda. And we also go over, like I mentioned before, over other issues within our city. Some issues that are brought up by residents, some by business people, and some ideas that I just come up with that we can work on. Let's see, what else did I do here? I also got a couple of phone calls from residents. I have a few people that are constantly looking out that whenever we have illegal food vendors set up throughout our city, they call me and they take pictures, and I immediately forward these pictures to our city manager, and he calls the code enforcement officers, and we take care of that issue. We have a program in which we do allow legal food vendors to go out there and operate, but they must be permitted through our city and also through the Riverside County Health Department. So we encourage them to do so, but when they don't do it, we have to take action. to make sure we protect the safety of our residents. Now, I also heard from a District 5 resident that he complained at first. He was very upset that someone from Code Enforcement went out there and they gave him a warning regarding his trash containers, as the residents earlier mentioned. Well, he thought it was a brand new ordinance that our city had. Well, after I explained to him that it's an old ordinance and it's been in the books for a long time, and we're working and trying to educate people to make sure that they keep their trash containers behind a screen, behind a gate, he was happy about it, and actually he's going to continue, from now on, he's going to go along with our ordinance. So he was pleased to actually heard from somebody there. And last night, as it was mentioned by Councilmember Gregory, I also attended the Taste and Sounds of Cathedral City. Mariah and the rest of the band, they are amazing. It was a little cold, but there was about between 120 to 150 people that attended. The music, the sounds are incredible. And we also have local food vendors out there that you can go and actually taste some of our local foods, local restaurants from here. Let's see. What else did I do? There's so much that goes on, but let's see. I also visited a property today in which we'll be talking about and discussing later on in tonight's meeting regarding item 5A in our meeting. I also got a call from a resident regarding the congestion that was also mentioned on 30th and Daypalm. I advised him that that's a temporary problem, that we'll work on it. I was going to mention it to our city engineer about it. And it was basically the same comments that we heard earlier regarding congestion, especially at certain hours and days of the week, that it can take up to 5 minutes to get across the intersection. And I also visited the Horizon neighborhood community to see how they were doing in their reconstruction process after Hillary, the storm Hillary. And sadly, first home I visited, I see the resident on the phone, and he was irate, really upset, talking to someone on the phone. Well, it was a contractor, and I didn't dare to step into their conversation. I walked away and visited someone else because it was a very heated conversation, and all I could hear was dissatisfaction all the way. So whenever you're going to use a contractor to use some of your work, make sure they're highly recommended, and of course, try to make sure that you use licensed contractors, because sometimes when you get inexpensive contractors, it doesn't mean that it's cheap. It just means that you're going to go through the headaches, the work is not going to be done, and you're going to just run into a lot of issues with your project. And I also drove around the city today, and I was shocked to see how beautiful it looked. We have flower vendors throughout, almost in every corner today. And of course, they're unlicensed. And we had one that was actually almost pretty much a flower shop, a florist, on Monte Vista and Ramon Road. I called Charlie about it. They had 2 tents plus dozens and dozens of flower arrangements for sale, and people just stopping by. Well, of course, we don't allow that. They're not permitted unless they get a permit from our city. But I contacted our city manager to make sure that hopefully we can put a stop to it. That happens it happens pretty much in the holidays for Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and occasionally for Christmas as well. So mentioned that to our city manager, and he was going to take care of it. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, thank you. Been busy, huh?
A little bit.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you all. And I want to start with clarifying the 15 shots of tequila. What were they thinking, right? I mean, nobody I know, I'm looking at some of you guys might, but nobody I know can drink 15 shots of liquor. So I was very lucky because Ernesto brought a friend with him. And I said to his friend, "You like tequila?" And he said, yeah, I like it a lot. I said, "Stand right behind me." And so I would take the tiniest little sip so I could taste it and rate it, and then I'd pass it behind my back, and it'd come back as an empty cup. And I'd put it down and take the next one. And so I got through all 15 shots. And I think when we judged, we pretty much judged the same thing. So I guess you can drink that much liquor. All right, so I also was at the badge pinning. I also wanted to share, well, I probably wanted to share the best thing that I've done in these last 2 weeks. I voted. I hope you all vote too, because that's what rules our nation. That's how we choose our local representatives. And yes, of course, our president is very important, but you can't imagine how much of an effect our state and local leaders can have on all of us. So please don't give up your opportunity to vote. For me, it's a mandate. For you, I think it's just a really good idea. Okay, so I went to Leadership Coachella Valley as a speaker for Cathedral City this last week, and it was amazing to see so many people professionals, willing to give up their time each and every week to come to this event and learn from different people, and it was really inspirational to me. I am working with Mayor Carnevale on our next emergency preparedness, which will be at Date Palm Country Club on, I think it's April 19th. And they've got it going. I don't know why we ever said we'd make the buckets, but we make the buckets of the emergency preparedness stuff for 30 people. They get raffled off at the end of each event. I too was at goal setting, and I think as you will see it spilled out over the next weeks and months, that we had many productive suggestions and some implementations that will go, easy enough that we'll get some serious stuff done. So this is kind of cool. So I'm listening to the radio, and I mostly listen to talk radio, and I was kind of burnt out on it. So I hit this other station that my car just secretly tells me about. I don't know. I don't really understand it. And so I'm listening to this station. It's kind of like 70s rock, right? And I'm of that age. 70s rock is kind of connecting with me. And all of a sudden it stops, and there's this voice that says, "This radio station and all the music is coming to you from Cathedral City." It's like, wow, I knew we had a little radio station, KWXY, but they put out some pretty good music, and they're right here, and I just love that. I liked that a lot. Okay, so I served you over the last couple of weeks. I'm sure this is not right. My next sentence says you were arrested. I really don't think anybody was arrested. I think it's assessed. So we have, I was your representative at Mosquito and Vector Control. I've represented you at Sunline on 2 different committees and commissions. Also at CVEG, Energy and Sustainability, where we are really working on air pollution, because it turns out that the silt that is in the air, the silt that we breathe in, it's so tiny, it never leaves your body for the rest of your life. So we would like to minimize the amount of silt we each take into our lungs. It does not do us any good, just the opposite. So it's something we're all working on there. And then I know it seems a little bit early, but in April, the Boys and Girls Club will be hosting their annual Meatball Festival. I'm inviting you all to come. You may not recognize me, as my husband and I will be Fred and Wilma Flintstone in our very own Flintstone mobile, and we'll be serving great big dino balls. So I think you should all come and have a great time. I know we're going to, and it's such a great organization to donate your entrance fee to. And then just the last thing that I wanted to tell you about is that our police department is hiring for Citizens on Patrol. It's a nonprofit volunteer organization which consists of a group of dedicated volunteers organized to serve as ambassadors of the city and the eyes and ears of the Cathedral City Police Department. Cathedral City Citizens on Patrol members are not police officers. Rather, they are a valued resource to the Cathedral City Police Department in an integral strategic partnership for ensuring safe homes and communities throughout community policing. So they do things like they're on patrols and they help with records in the traffic bureau and special events and major incidents. They are looking for new applicants. It's a great way to spend a few hours. How many hours do you think you spend a month? As many as they want. So somewhere between 10 and 20 hours. and you would be such a great asset to our city. We would all really appreciate it. And although I'm not going to go deep into Mary Nutter, I will tell you that this year, my alma mater, Oregon State University, is coming, and it's going to be really nice to have them here without my mother, who always referred to me as her daughter, the Beaver. So you can imagine, on a variety of reasons, I would not want to be called that, but we were the Oregon State Beavers, so go Beavers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just don't know what to say.
Don't say go Beavers.
No, I'm not going to say Beavers. I'm still freaked out about the dino balls and the 15 shots of tequila.
Right.
You're giving this council a real good image.
There you go, dino balls.
I think we just
This
lost
big.
Councilmember Gutierrez. I don't know what happened to him.
It's probably back trying to work up a recipe.
But in lieu of boring you with, I've pretty much done pretty much what everybody else has done. We're just going to go move along right now. So, yeah, dino balls.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let me see here. Will the city clerk read the consent agenda items, please?
Item number 3A is to waive full reading of ordinances on the agenda. Item number 3B is the minutes approval of January 24th, 2024 and January 27th, 2024. Item number 3C is to receive and file payment of claims and demands for January of 2024. Item number 3D is to ratify the nomination of Peter Bedard by Councilmember Rita Lamb to serve on the Historic Preservation Committee and appoint him to fill an unexpired term continuing through June 30th, 2026. Item number 3E is to adopt a resolution approving a citywide publicly available pay schedule in accordance with California Code of Regulations, Title II, Section 570.5. Item number 3F is amendment to the Cathedral City Fire Management Association, also known as CCFMA agreement. And item number 3G is to authorize the city manager or his designee to approve and/or execute various routine easements, agreements, and licenses, and approve other actions for city-owned land on behalf of the city. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a comment on the consent agenda?
I don't have any request to speak forms for any of the items on the consent agenda, but if you're a member of the public and you wish to provide comments on any of the consent agenda items, now would be the time, and you can raise your hand. And I see no hands raised.
Okay. Are there any comments from the city council, or any comments or question? Are we ready for a motion?
I move to approve.
Okay, we're not doing, are we doing
Do
this?
you not have a?
We don't have it.
We don't.
Hold on just a minute. No? Nope. Let's do a roll call. There's a little bit, I need to fix this. I'm sorry.
Mayor Pro
Mayor Pro
Tem
Tem made the first.
moved. Councilmember Gregory second.
Councilmember Gutierrez.
Yes.
Councilmember Gregory.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ross.
Yes?
Mayor Carnevale.
Yes.
And the motion carries 4-1 with Councilmember Lamb being absent.
Thank you. We're going to go into the 5A, appeal of variance of the 23004 and conditional use permit 23-003. May we have a staff report, Mr. City Manager?
Thank you. Sandra Molina, who's the Deputy Director of Development Services, will present this item, which is an appeal of a provision of a conditional use permit that was issued, that was approved by the Planning Commission back in December. Sandra?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. As indicated by the City Manager, this is a public hearing of an appeal of a variance and a conditional use permit. So the proposed project is conditional use permit 23003. It is to establish a approximately 2,000 square foot cannabis dispensary, a retail use of prepackaged products at on East Palm Canyon Drive in the planning PCC zone district. The project proposes, or the applicant proposes, to also improve the parking lot and the parking spaces, trash enclosure, and landscaping. A cannabis use does require separation from certain uses, and those are considered locational requirements. In the CUP that was reviewed, the project did meet those distance requirements. Along with the conditional use permits, the variance, and the variance is to remove the parking lot shading requirement from 50% of the parking spaces associated with the use. This is a vicinity map. The location is at 67455 East Palm Canyon. It's approximately 13,000 square feet in size. It's depicted on this map as the property bounded in black. The zoning is PCC, which permits, with the conditional use permit, cannabis dispensary uses. Surrounding uses are also zoned similarly PCC, and the general plan is commercial general. Another thing to note is this particular location, the existing building has been vacant for several years. So with regard to projects, when they come into the planning department does review them preliminarily, and also the formal CUP submittal. Once the review's been done initially, it goes to our Development Services Committee, which is also comprised of our engineering, fire, and building departments. They provide conditions of approval based upon the plans they receive and review. This project did go to the Architectural Review Committee, and they reviewed it on November 1st, and the Architectural Review Committee recommended that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit and also approve the variance. Planning Commission did have a public hearing, and staff's recommendation to the Planning Commission, along with the ARC's recommendation, was to approve the conditional use permit and the variance. So at the Planning Commission meeting, which was held on December 6th, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing, considered staff reports and testimony, the public testimony as well, and they voted to approve the conditional use permit. They felt that it met, well, based upon meeting the locational requirements, and also in their action, they adopted the conditional use permit findings to approve the CUP. But they also, during the hearing, voted to deny the variance with regard to eliminating the shading requirement for the parking spaces. And in doing so, they established or added a condition, 3.49, to the conditional use permit that requires the shading. The conditional use permit is subject to certain findings. They're listed here on the screen. The Planning Commission's action did include these findings. So the variance, when you consider a variance, there are specific findings that need to be made. One of the foremost ones is that there are exceptional circumstances related to the property that limit or preclude the ability to meet the requirements. And this slide is intended to depict the conditions that really limit the ability to meet this finding. On top, the kind of yellowish color, this area depicts the street frontage improvements that the applicant is going to have to provide. So there is the existing right-of-way, but they're going to have to provide an additional, ultimately it's between 13 and 16 feet of additional right-of-way. That strip underneath it is a small area of parkway landscaping. The blue shaded area depicts the existing east-west driveway that's located on the site. This driveway is fixed and cannot be moved. Then you have this light green shaded area, which was a sidewalk that's needed for accessibility. And then you have the building and the surrounding concrete around that. Building's existing, you can't move that. So when you look at the site, the area that the applicant has control over with respect to designing the site is the strip of white that shows the 8 parking spaces and the trash enclosure. And so, as indicated in the staff report, there are several physical constraints that limit the ability to provide either the shaded structure or some trees, as incorporating them does impede or somehow encroach into the parking spaces. The staff report, the agenda report, did include the appellant's appeal application, and the applicant is appealing the denial of the variance and is requesting that the City Council overturn the Planning Commission's denial. The appeal application does identify the site constraints and reiterates the size issues and the site constraints and the lack of direct access on East Palm Canyon. The application also indicates that the requirement has been somewhat inconsistently applied along other properties within the streetscape there. However, this is a CUP, and so a CUP is subject to these design review requirements, which requires the 50% of the parking spaces to be shaded, which is the basis for submitting the variance. This slide is the variance findings that are made in order to support the variance. The agenda report does go through these findings and demonstrate that there is the basis for the city council to make the findings should, at the conclusion of the hearing, the council be inclined to uphold the appeal request. This again is just the depiction of the site. So this evening, the city council, at the conclusion of the public hearing, may vote to do certain things. The agenda report from staff does recommend that the city council vote to overturn the planning commission's decision and approve the variance, and in doing so also the conditional use permit, and remove the condition that requires the shading, and then find the project is exempt from CEQA. At the conclusion of the hearing, the city council may vote to also, they could also vote to uphold the planning commission's decision and deny the appeal. Should that action be taken, then the planning commission's decision of December denying the variance would stand. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, any questions from council?
Yes.
I'll just follow it. Let me see. Hang on one second. We got somebody up here. Ernesto,
Thank you, Mayor.
you bet.
My first question is, Mr. City Manager, is this a relocation of a license? Because I know that we have a limit of how many dispensaries we can have. Can you explain that one to me?
It was a license that was available that was not being used, but what did fall within the amount that were allowed and is being transferred from another location.
How many do we currently have?
I'd have to go back and count the total. We're somewhere in the 12 or 13 range.
Okay. And now, can you go back to the first couple of slides in which it shows the distance, or distances, you can say? Right there. Okay. Now, right in there, it shows that it's 600 feet from a school, daycare, or youth center, 200 feet from a residential zone. Can you tell us how that is determined? How is it measured?
We measure it from the property line.
From property line? Okay. Now, I don't know how, but from property line to property line, I did a measurement, and right across the street on the north side of the property, if it's from property line to property line, it's only, there's a residential neighborhood, a Sprint community, a condominium community, that is within 120, 150 feet from this location, right across the street. Now, also to the southwest is Glory of God Ministries. Now, that one, they have a daycare, they have preschool, and they also have youth activities and a church. So what I'm talking about is, if we have 600 feet distance, it doesn't meet any of these, and it was not addressed during the Planning Commission. And it's very easy to see that, of course, the distance of 600 feet does not even, I mean, we're talking 100 feet, 150 feet from the church, from building to building, from where the proposed dispensary is to the Glory of God Ministries. Now, you talk about residential, from property line to property line, we're talking 150 feet max. Just right across the street is where the property line is. Now, I did not see that that was considered at all during the presentation or the arguments in the Planning Commission. Now, we go on and we talk about the shading structure. That's something else that I would like to address, but first of all, I wanted to find out how was this, it was a mist, or was it measured and not measured accurately, or am I inaccurately measuring this? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
So with regard to schools, daycare centers, or youth centers, those are defined in the code. And the church services or the service that they provide don't meet those definitions of school, daycare center, or youth center. And so the location distance requirement would not be applicable.
I would like
So-
to read what that is. Can you read it for me? Do you have that description?
Can you use your microphone so everybody can hear you?
Schools, daycare, and youth centers are all defined in Chapter 9 of your municipal code. And so schools are essentially defined as kindergarten, elementary, secondary, or college-level instruction that's supervised. That does not seem to be the case here. We don't have any evidence that that's the case with regard to the church facility. Churches and religious institutions aren't included in the distance requirement at all. So if it was just a church or a religious facility, it wouldn't qualify for exclusion because that's not part of our distance location ordinance. Daycare facilities are defined in the municipal code to reference the health and safety code provision. Section 1596.80 requires that daycare facilities have a license. We don't have any indication or any evidence that this is a licensed daycare facility. Youth group, the definition of youth group that's in your municipal code requires a youth center or youth use to be the sole use of the site. And this clearly isn't the sole use of the site. And therefore, because of the definitions don't match the use, this 600-foot distance requirement doesn't apply in this case. Now, I can't address the other question that you had about the residential use. I'd have to ask Sandra to address that. If you have any questions about the definitions,
Now,
I can answer those.
The 600 feet from a church, now, and then hypothetically, does a Boys and Girls Club, they do daycare, are they licensed, a licensed daycare facility? Are they licensed, does anyone know?
Nonprofit, I believe.
Yeah, because this is also a nonprofit here. So, and also, the church, is that only not addressed in our code, or is it addressed in the state cannabis licensing code?
It's not addressed in the municipal code.
Is it addressed in the state?
The applicable thing. The state, I think, does have a licensing requirement, but I don't remember the distance requirement.
Under the
I don't know if
state?
Sandra does.
I don't either. The question is specifically to the state's requirement? Yeah, I don't have that, sir.
Yeah, I would like to know that to make sure that we're making the right decision, or that I'm making the right decision, because I believe that, of course, seeing what this church does to our community, I would hate to approve a cannabis dispensary having kids and families drive by and smell and also see signage of a cannabis business when that was not or has not been the intent of the state, and I'm pretty sure it has never been the intent of our council. If it was missed, I'm sure we possibly could revisit that. But I would like to make certain that the state, if it covers that, the distance from a church to a dispensary, what that is. But also, I want to make sure that we address the residential part. If it's from property line to property line, there's no way that this meets that criteria. And I'll let other council members continue as well.
Councilmember Gutierrez, are you saying the property across the street is not 125 feet?
Correct.
Was that apartments there?
All you do is you cross the street, and immediately the property line for the condominium complex, which is in the Palm Springs area, not in Cathedral City, It's right
Resort
adjacent to the
residential,
north.
right here, yeah.
Okay. And there's a residential house above the church, too. I don't know who owns
That's
it.
correct, yes, but that might be a little bit further than 250 feet.
Mayor Pro Tem, anything?
Well,
Or you want to save your
I think-
comments?
Yeah, I think when the applicants
Okay.
have a statement, I may have questions for them.
Any questions? He's digging in.
So there were some good questions asked, so, and I didn't hear answers to them. And so one of them is this property 250 feet away from a residential zoned area? Now, I'm looking at maps here that show like a tax service place immediately across the street, and the residents are behind that. So I don't know again, but I would think it would be an easy question for staff to say, did somebody measure, or does somebody look at a map and measure, or how is that requirement? So that would be, I guess simply is, can you explain how the distance requirement for residential is met? And then my second question is going to be, didn't somebody look at state law, especially because it got raised in a letter, the question got raised in a letter, and I was told that we would have answers to questions that were raised in the letter. So why don't you start with number one, and then we can go to number two. So explain how the distance requirement is met for residential.
So we were also verifying this in our code. So I'll start with the 200 feet from a resort residential zone. So you do have resort residential zone, but it's only 250 feet if outdoor consumption is proposed. There's no consumption proposed with this use.
Well,
So-
and we've been through this issue with resort residential before, that there's been we have talked about whether that needs to be changed, but nothing has gone forward, to my knowledge. So is the prohibition, it does not include resort residential from my past, or our past discussions, is that correct?
Well, there's there's actually three different location requirements, but one is if there's outdoor consumption, it has to be 250 feet from a resort residential zone, and there's no consumption proposed, so that one is not applicable.
That was our new one, because if I remember, that was a more recent amendment, because we had issues when we were asked to permit consumption. That was one of the issues that we raised. So that's correct. So since there is no outdoor, so they would be, and even if they wanted to add it later, if they are within 250 feet, my understanding is that would be prohibited, because that's in our code. Right?
So
Because I saw some things in here that said they don't intend to allow it, but that's nice. But the way I'm hearing it is, well, even if they change their mind, the way our code reads today is they wouldn't be allowed to add consumption. City attorney? She looks perplexed.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that particular requirement.
I'm sorry, I was looking something up. Your question?
You're not listening to my long questions?
Well, I thought you were addressing the residential distance. And
Well, you are addressing it. So if you remember recently when we were asked to add consumption lounges and make a change in the ordinance, it was added this requirement that they be a certain distance from even resort residential. And so my question was, since what I'm hearing is that it may be within the distance for resort residential, that if the applicant has stated that they don't intend to add consumption, my question was, well, even if later they decided that they might want to add consumption, under our code as it's written today, after we made that change some time back, they wouldn't be allowed anyways.
Your code as it's written today in section 9.108.070
Microphone too, please.
has three distance requirements: 600 feet from a school, daycare center, or youth center, with 250 feet from a residential zone, within 250 feet of the resort residential zone if the dispensary includes an area for outside consumption of cannabis or cannabis products, pursuant to another section in the code. All distances shall be measured in a straight line without regard to intervening structures or topography from the nearest point of the building or structure in which the cannabis business is or will be located to the following locations or until the city limit is reached. If the cannabis business is or will be located in a multi-unit building, which it's not in this case, distances shall be measured from the nearest point of the suite in which the cannabis is in. Setbacks for schools, daycare are from the nearest property line. Setbacks from residential zones shall be measured to the nearest point of any legally permitted structure located in a residential zone. Or, if there is land within a residential zone with no legally permitted structure, the measurement shall be the nearest property line unless the nearest property line is within the public right-of-way, in which case the measurement shall be the edge of the right-of-way furthest from the proposed cannabis business. So essentially, you need to know what's closer, the vacant property line that's residentially zoned or the actual structure. So
it's not a vacant
structure to
property.
structure.
It's not a vacant property. It's residentially zoned. There's condos in it.
Yes,
But-
and if it's the case, when we're looking at that'd be the nearest structure.
So that's a little different than what we were just told. We were told the measurement was property line to property line. Now we're hearing it's from the structure. What I heard was from the structure to the property line of the residential zone. But you have to define residential zone, because now with that difference, it sounds like we're talking about residential zone that's not resort residential, which we haven't heard testimony, but I'm assuming that, well, we did hear somebody that's saying, well, it didn't apply because this was resort residential, so.
If it's a built-out zone, it's from the nearest structure located in the residential zone
To what?
to the building, structure to
Structure
structure.
to structure.
Otherwise, it's
So that's-
structure
But that's different than
to
what we were originally, you were
property
saying it was property line to property line, so that may be part of the issue.
I do want to
Well, let him
confirm
clarify.
with the city council that my predecessor did measure this, and I apologize, we have had staff transition on this, but I spoke with the applicant here a moment ago, and Robert Rodriguez did confirm the measurements as part of the review of this application in the onset of its review with staff.
Okay. Well, it sounds like and I don't want to speak, but it's for you, but it sounds like the difference was you were measuring property line to property line. Now we're hearing the proper measurement is building to building,
Correct.
which is different.
Yes, and if you measure property line to property line, and for some reason, I had heard that it was 300 feet. Now I read that it's 250 feet. But from building to building is approximately 280 feet. But I can't not see exactly which is the nearest building, edge of the building from the apartment complex or the condominium complex to the property, to the actual edge of the property. From building to building. So I don't know exactly what it is, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close.
Well, the one you
Now,
had up just before this is a map, and you can see the building in the block X, and then you can see the condos across
Yes.
the way, so.
So can I just interject something that I thought I heard you say, council member, and then I heard it would not go along with what you said. Did you say that those condos across the street are in Palm Springs?
yes.
So you said something in your statement that it was within the city limits, that the measurements were from one building to another within the city?
No, there's a reference to a property line that's within a city right-of-way, but I don't think that's applicable here.
I thought you said city limits or something, or within your city, or words to that effect. If while we move on, if you just look over one more time. Thanks.
But if the condominiums are in Palm Springs, so that would just eliminate the 300 feet, wouldn't it? Because it's not in Cathedral City. The resident's not in Cathedral City.
Well, it sounds like.
Your code just says residential zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we're ready, we can move to question number 2, which the question number 2 was raised by the council member and also in a letter that we received a copy of that said that there is a state law that prohibits licensing a facility that's within a certain distance from a church. So do we have an analysis on that?
I do believe there is a licensing requirement that the state has its own restrictions, and generally that's 600 feet, but I'd have to go back and review that particularly to see if it applies in this case. I was looking for that, I couldn't pull that up. And while I have the floor, there is a reference in the municipal code to city limits. And it's in the beginning paragraph, which falls nearest point of the building or structure or until the city limit is reached.
Thank you.
So you did hear that from me. I did read that.
Eric, and then concerning about the youth services, you says it doesn't apply in this case here. Why would it not apply?
I'm sorry, which doesn't apply?
The youth services. You said it
Oh,
doesn't.
the youth center?
Youth center.
The long and the short of it is the distance from the church facility to that is within 600 feet. But the distance requirement only applies if the school use, daycare use, or youth center use is within, meets the definitions in the code. And based on the evidence that we have in front of us, it's not a school use as defined in our code, it's not a daycare use as defined in our code, and it's not a youth center as defined in our code. It's not a school use because it's not an elementary school, secondary school, college, or otherwise. It's not a daycare use because the definitions in the health and safety code, which we adopt as part of our definition, require the facility to be licensed. We don't have any evidence that it's a licensed facility. It's not a youth center because our definition of youth center requires that to be the sole use of the facility. And in this case, the church is a religious institution and church, and while a youth center might be part of the use, it's not the sole use.
And
I understand it's a technical reading, but that is what our code says.
So to play off of that a little bit, and I have no idea what their taxation status is at the Glory to God Church, is do those exclusions, are they moot if you're a 501c3?
No.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make that on the record.
There is and I will say, there is a reference in the first letter that we received from the church, and it says that they're permitted to use those as a 501c3. Well, they might be permitted to have those uses under their tax-free standing from the government. That doesn't have anything to do with our regulatory land use power or how our code applies.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Any council members?
Yes, I have one more question.
Okay, go right ahead.
Mr. City Attorney, now, you mentioned something regarding the city limits. Now, can you explain that or tell us how that works? Because the property where it sits right now, whether it is a structure or the edge of the property line, is within a certain amount of distance from city limits.
So the way this works, and I'm sorry for the convoluted explanation, is that you measure structure to structure, and if that's within 250 feet, it's preempted because it's within our distance requirement. However, there's a caveat to that. If the structure is within another city, outside of our boundaries, and I'm assuming in this case, and maybe Sandra or Andrew can clarify, that 250 feet just gets us to the city boundary, and there we stop. We don't go on to the structure in that case. And so if it's more than 250 feet from there to the city boundary, or we just stop at that distance, we stop counting. And the
Is it?
requirement doesn't work.
This property is probably 130, 140 feet from the structure to the city limits. And if you actually count from property line to city limits, you're talking 110 10 feet, 100 feet.
But if it's outside of that, if it's outside of the city limits, you stop counting it. It'd have to be within that envelope of our city limits.
A little bit confused.
So
So,
once you
You
hit
you
the
stop
city limits,
measuring
it's
it, you stop measuring at the city limits.
oh, okay.
So even if it were 154 feet,
off. That's right.
even though it's 4 feet outside of the city limits, you stop counting. It's deemed far enough away, because that's the way the code defines it.
So in this situation, since the city limits are, from property line to city limits are 120 feet, let's say, per se, that will be permissible?
Yeah, Fred, think of it this way. Once you hit the city limits, nothing exists on the other side of the city
Okay.
limits for our purposes.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
Anyone? At this time, I will open for public hearing. At this time, does the applicant have an opportunity to make a statement? Is there any members of the public, or not public?
In council, I'll remind you, since this has to do with due process rights, we're not using the 5-minute clock for the speakers. We would ask everybody not to be repetitive of what somebody else might have said. We'll generally start with the appellant in this case, then other members of the public can speak, and we'll give the applicant or the appellant here some rebuttal time at the end if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chris McFadden, 75145 St. Charles Place, Palm Desert. I'm the architect on this project, and I thought this was going to be a real simple matter tonight. We were going to come in and just discuss the item that we're talking about here, which is 3.49 in the draft CUP's conditions of approval. We just got those notices today, and so I'm glad we kind of got that out of the way up front, because I was going to ask for a little bit of rebuttal time at the tail end. Okay, so again, I'm just going to address the issue in regards to the variance. Again, tonight we're just requesting that the extenuating circumstances in regards to this particular project is such that imposing the strict application of the requirement deprives this project the privilege enjoyed by other properties in the same vicinity which have less exceptional circumstances. And that's really the issue. We're all glad to do shading, and we agree with the guideline that says that we should provide. We think that that's a reasonable approach, and that's how a lot of buildings are designed. And we wouldn't resist this if it was easily and if it didn't impact the project so much, but it does impact the project. So let me show you what's going on here. This is the site plan of the project, if you see that on your monitors there. And this right here is the sun path for this particular parcel in this area right here. So it shows the sun rising in the east, settling in the west, and moving across the south axis. Okay, that's the normal. And then this shows the width of the difference between summer and winter as to the peak of where the sun angle occurs from. And so you see that this is aligned with the building. The building pretty much faces north. It's got a little bit of a tilt to one side, as you can see here. And so further down below here, we have some photos of this, which was taken. So we've been on this project for over a year, so we've watched how this has gone. We thought this was going to be a fairly easy TI, but now we're working through it. And oh, by the way, we're excited that we've gotten staff approval and we've made it as far as we have. And we're like 90% done with our construction drawings. I'm ready to submit to start our permit process maybe this next week, but I won't come in on Monday. And so here on these photos here, you can see these pictures were taken, and they show the building itself produces a shadow line. And here's a vehicle parked in the shadow line here, there's only 8 parking spaces across the front of this building. And so the requirement is for 50% of the spaces to be shaded, okay? Right here you can see that 100% of the spaces are shaded. And so with the sun angles moving at any one time, you're going to have 50% of the shading of the parking spaces is already accommodated by the building itself. So we have this photo here. We have this one that shows you from a different angle. And again, over here and over here with a vehicle parked in that space. So the reality is if we do put a shade structure in here, the shade structure, depending on where we put it, let's say we put it across all 8 spaces, it's going to be in the shade a substantial amount of the time from the building itself.
Define substantial.
Pardon?
Define substantial.
Substantial, well, the 50% is what's required. So that's, if we are at 50.
But you made the statement that it would be shaded a substantial amount of the time.
Well, I'm saying all 8 spaces would be shaded a substantial amount of the time, as opposed to just 50% of them. Okay, and that would be anywhere from, based on the sun angles back here, on this plan right here, this plan right here, it's about a 17-degree difference between low azimuth and high azimuth, between summer and winter. So that would pull this line back about 4 feet from the building, from where it's at now, at the one extreme from high to low would be about 4 feet, because the building's 18 foot tall and the parking spaces are 18, 19 foot long. So this is the dilemma. I'd like to, Sandra had pulled up the color-coded one, which was kind of nice. So what happens here is we've got 5 foot of sidewalk, we have 18 feet of parking space, and then this next down, it's 24 feet of backup space. That's what is the minimum backup distance for 90-degree parking there. So to come in here and do landscaping, we'd have to take out an island. We don't really want to lose parking spaces to do that. And again, we're not really adding any shading to what the building's already providing. Also, this building faces due north. I pointed that out. On the other side of the highway are all the buildings face due south. And there's been numerous projects. This guideline has been in effect since 1989, so it's not brand new on the books, and became an ordinance, I believe, a little bit later. So we have 5 projects, 67, 990, 858, 800, 794, and 778, all have very similar site constraints as this. They don't meet the landscape requirement, and they don't have canopies or shade structures in front of them, and they face due south, where they're getting pounded by the sun. And so, the furniture store was recently done. That furniture store is very tall over there. That's probably the newest one, and it does not comply with this. So we're only asking for something that other people have been entitled to do. And I think we have exceptional circumstances here. Even in all codes, even when it uses the word should or shall instead of should, very often exemptions are always listed to that. So these are very exceptional circumstances for this project. This project, and also in regards, is the function of a shade structure here is that we have no driveway access along our frontage. Okay, we're losing 23% of the property, again, for the third take on the Highway 111 ultimate right-of-way increase since this project was built back in 1966. And it used to start out as a gas station. It had full access out to the highway, and we agree it's a dangerous area out there because of the little curvature that's in it. But so this property has no access directly to the frontage there, and so as people drive by, this is a nice retail space. It's got a great look to it, and that's what we want to demo out. This is what the facility is going to look like, and putting a shade structure across here is only going to restrict more view of the retail aspect of this facility. It's been empty for several years. This is another constraint against it. It's not it's not a very desirable site from a lot of uses because of the access to the highway. Access is very important. This is desirable in this instance and this might be the last best use for this particular building. And that's, very sustainable, is to reuse buildings as much as we can instead of just tearing them down and throwing them into the landfill. And we think that, my client has a very successful business just like this, and this will be a great location for him to have two here in the city of Cathedral City. And so with that, I think that's, everything else, there's, lots of comment. We've been through architectural review, and they were very pleased with the overall look of the building and what we've done with it and everything. And so I think it's going to be a fine addition to that corner, and it's going to be a great use there. And we are willing to consider some of the things that you guys were talking about, is not having any consumption here. That needs to be added as a condition of the approval. We talked about that last time, and we said that would be fine. As a current facility has no consumption there. The other thing is the aspect, and one of the things that did come up, and you were mentioning the odors. This is not a grow facility. It's not an extraction facility. It's not production. It's not packaging. Everything is pre-packaged into this facility. There is no smell. And yet you were still putting in some odor control in there, because that's what was requested by Planning Commission. We said, okay, that's fine. We can put, some odor control in there, but everything's prepackaged, no consumption on site. So I think it'll be and the average stay for clientele here is, 3 to 5 minutes.
I read that 3 to 5 minutes. I don't buy that for a second. You can't do anything in 3 or 5 minutes. I think that's stretching it a little bit. I'd rather be more upfront saying, hey, it's 10, 15 minutes.
But a lot of people come in knowing what they want.
3 to 5 minutes, What I find interesting about your picture here, it's all sunny in front. There's no shadow there.
This is called architectural license. Yes, it is. And landscaping's done that. We call that architectural license too.
Chris, is that it?
That's it.
Okay,
And then
Council,
unless something else comes up.
Okay.
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, and then, is there any public mix?
Mayor, could I come back to one of the questions the council had about state licensing distance requirements? Okay. The state does have a default sensitive use for schools and daycare, similar uses that 600 feet. However, that state rule doesn't prohibit local jurisdictions from adopting different standards. And in our case, we've adopted a relaxed standard below the 600 feet rule in certain cases, and so that rule applies. And so the state licensing requirement isn't valid, and I apologize, I didn't have that clearly for you at the beginning.
All right. Thank you. Any questions on that, or that's clear?
No, it helps.
Okay. City Clerk, is there any public? Eric, there's no time limit on this here?
No, in cases where there's due process rights, both the applicant and the speakers, we should give them enough time to complete their argument.
I just get nervous when a counselor comes up to the podium.
We can't have any filibuster.
Scary, right?
We like to get out of here by midnight.
I won't repeat, though, everything I put in that letter. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, City Manager, City Attorney, and City staff. My name is Bruce Bauer. I'm with the law firm of Slovak, Barron, MP, Murphy, and Pinckney. And I'm here representing Glory to God Ministries International on agenda item number 5. Hopefully you received both of my letters. I went to great detail in the letter yesterday regarding some of the impacts, the negative impacts that our client is going to realize because of this project. Today I also sent another letter regarding the process questions, what you can do today in terms of your vote. The project that you have before you will have an enormous impact on our client, since Glory to God Ministries is located within a stone's throw, 60 feet, of the proposed project. Glory to God Ministry operates a 501c3 as a nonprofit. As such, it's permitted to operate a school and other children's services. As it stands presently, it provides childcare, hosts children's classes and youth groups during religious services. All these activities will take place within 60 feet of this proposed marijuana dispensary. Before I turn to those enormous impacts, I want to address the city's review power tonight. That was contained in the letter today. On the topic of the standard of review for tonight's meeting, it's important to note that the City Council is reviewing the project de novo. That means you can take a look at the project in total, and you can look at the project and say no to it. You can reject the project, and we urge you to. Remember, before you was an application for a CUP. When you're considering a CUP, it's appropriate to consider traffic, parking, safety, noise, and nuisance problems. And these clearly represent concerns that are within the domain of the public interest and are concerns with respect to this project. And I think some of the analysis thus far focuses too much, legally speaking, on some of these definitions. You have the power to take a look at this whole project and say, this project creates a nuisance. It creates a problem with noise and parking and traffic in total in a way that we cannot approve this project.
Can I ask you a question as you're moving through, or do you want to wait until you're done?
Any time.
So a couple of things. How would this cause a nuisance? Define that, please.
Well, there's certainly nuisance in terms of the traffic problems. As it stands now, there's 3 driveways that I've pointed out in our letter. There's a driveway, the Glory to God Ministry, that has on the far west side of its property. Then it has a driveway to the east of its property. This project has a driveway on its eastern side. In terms of the staff report and the recommendation or the applicant's application here, there's nothing that prohibits the utilization of the customers at this project site to use our client's driveway, which is connected. It's almost immediately adjacent to the property. So you can imagine the problems that are going to envelop this. The city's identified this as a very narrow strip. It's got very little parking, 8 parking spaces, I believe he said. You can imagine what happens if someone needs additional parking. Where are they going to turn?
But wouldn't this be the objection to anybody who wanted to use that building? Wouldn't
Perhaps,
they come with
but
cars? Wouldn't they come with customers? Wouldn't they be next door? Wouldn't they maybe use your driveway?
That's not before the city council. Any other project? This project is before your council.
But it
And
has
that's
to
the
be
project
reasonable.
you
It has
review.
to be reasonable in the argument. And so my question is, wouldn't this be the same assertion you would make to anybody who wanted to take that building?
Perhaps, but here, in this situation, city staff nor the applicant has addressed this problem. If they don't want that problem to ensue in another situation, they have to address that problem. They cannot simply ignore the problem.
Well,
They could
it's
put
only an assertion that's a
put a
problem.
wall up.
You could have bought the
They can
property.
put a wall up between their property and our property, so no one would utilize our driveway.
But-
That would be a solution to it.
On the same solution, you could have bought the building.
Well,
I mean, there's
that's,
all kinds of we could have, should have, would have, right? Not even should have, just we could have. But I guess I need to understand how the objection to this, of a cannabis facility that does not partake of marijuana on site, how is that a danger, a safety concern, or something that sounds, very vile, that you wouldn't have those same objections with practically anybody?
well,
If they want to park there, if they want to come through a driveway, if they want to be next door to you. I mean, those are
Again,
world problems.
in all due respect, you have to take each project per project and review it as it comes before the council.
But
In
you
this
can't have me
project,
not think.
if I may, this project as it's currently devised and proposed before you will create a nuisance. It will create a nuisance to our client. And so if you approve that, you're going to have a nuisance problem on our property. You're going to have these customers, as they come down from Palm Springs, that area, toward Cathedral City, they're going to see the dispensary on the right-hand side. The first driveway that they see and they will have access to is our driveway. So which driveway are they going to utilize? We know that they're going to utilize our driveway. And here, they know this problem. They've talked about it. yet they have offered no solution. That's the nuisance of which I'm talking about.
But it is not the only
There's more than
driveway.
that.
It's
There's
not the
also
only
public
driveway.
safety concerns that we've outlined regarding line of sight problems. None of that has been analyzed in the staff report. There's CEQA. This project is subject to CEQA. There's no question. The city staff has identified an exemption to CEQA, and you can identify an exemption to CEQA. However, if you can demonstrate that there's unusual circumstances that apply, that exemption doesn't apply. And there was no analysis here in the city staff report, none whatsoever, on these issues. Nor have they made a determination that there were no unusual circumstances. That is the reason for our letter. There are some extraordinarily unusual circumstances regarding this project, and that's why they should have had a CEQA analysis, and it's the reason you should not approve this project as it's currently devised.
Mr. Bauer, today I visited the property, and I took Golf Club Drive, made a left turn going east, and guess what driveway did I utilize to park at this property? It was exactly what you described.
Well, I'd invite anyone to do as you said, and you would see. I mean, I've tried to outline it as best I can in a letter, which is often very difficult. Unfortunately, I'm not a traffic engineer. The city has traffic engineers, however, and they've said there's line of sight problems. They've said that previously in that area. And we know, I mean, you don't have to be a traffic engineer to see there's problems here. When you're coming out of that driveway where they're proposing on the eastern side, there's line of sight problems. And those cannot be ignored. Again, there's traffic problems, there's public safety concerns, and there's nuisance problems. Again, while the statute defines schools, daycare, and school facilities, I believe you may be taking an overly legalistic approach to this matter. The church, our client, has all of those contained within its facilities. And maybe while the school or the daycare facility or the youth center doesn't apply to a particular definition provided in the municipal code, that doesn't mean that they don't exist and they don't cumulatively taken. You should consider that fact, that there's these kids in youth center, a school, and a daycare center located next to it.
Can you define what the school is? What age children are they schooling? Is it K through 12?
All right, there's another speaker from the Glory to God ministry that will speak on that topic. In total, I urge that the City Council vote to deny the project. The City Council should make a finding that pursuant to Section 5.88.045 of the City Ordinance 800, this project is incompatible with the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood in which the proposed licensed premises is to be located and of the general public.
You have now just for the first time added health. Please tell me how this is going to affect somebody's health.
I'm using that term broadly speaking. Health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. And if the city does not deny this project, we ask that it provide the conditions of approval, ensure that the project has a no consumption facility, require that the street widening in front of the project be completed and ensure a safe line of sight, require the applicant to erect a barrier between the project and the Glory to God ministry property to ensure that ingress and egress are restricted from our property, and require the applicant to purchase signage that requires that the Glory to God property is not a point of ingress from the two driveway access points on South Palm Canyon, west of the dispensary. Thank you. If anyone has any additional questions?
Just another comment. As you mentioned, when you exit the property, I did experience exactly what you said. I was trying to make either a left turn or a right turn on the east driveway of the property, the existing driveway. It was pretty dangerous that I had to wait until I make sure that the light had turned red to the traffic going east to make sure it was safe. This was around noon today, and it was very dangerous that I almost consider actually going to another exit, which is further east, which it does not belong to this property owner, to see if I could more safely actually access I-111. So it is very dangerous to pull out of there, I think, at any given time. I make sure that there was no traffic, that the light had turned red to the eastbound traffic before I turned. That was the only way I was able to actually turn.
I think it's very concerning, these traffic issues and traffic safety concerns. And what concerns me is that the city staff did not analyze this. I mean, how can you make decisions regarding public safety in this setting without that information, that data, those reports before you? And it's for that reason I think the project as it's currently contemplated should be denied. Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, can you answer a question for me, please? So is the ingress and egress a violation of any of our city codes or laws?
Well, I'll have to ask the city engineer that question.
Thank you.
But it is a legitimate question. One
It
of the
is.
findings that you have to make is that the location isn't detrimental other to existing or permitted uses in the general area and relates properly to existing and proposed streets and highways. So,
Thank you. Mr. City Engineer? Director of Engineering.
Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, fellow council members, let me just provide some facts. That mutual egress between the two properties was built by Glory to God. It was required of the first CUP. They needed a third exit to exit. In addition to that, technically with that, in fact, they can't block it off because they were supposed to grant a mutual access easement or work a reciprocal access easement on the first CUP, and they never complied with that. So that's there. And even more is on their plans, they actually built all that concrete. They built the parking lot for that CUP in question in their frontage. So I'll leave that to you. It was necessary for them for ingress and egress. They had to get that mutual access easement. They built it. It's the same concrete work too. I went out there, looked at it, came back, looked at the plans and said, yep, they built it. So that's where that cascaded into the fact that we keep talking about this mutual access easement, and it was needed for them, and we've never received that grant of a reciprocal easement as required in the first CUP.
John, should this be approved, would they be allowed to put a wall there so that it would keep their customers from parking on the Glory to God's parking lot? Okay, so can they block that off?
Well, no, because that was a requirement of Glory to God. Glory to God Church built that access easement to accommodate them. The CUP in question doesn't need it. We know what cannabis dispensaries do. Very few cars typically. I've never seen a fire sale at one. In fact, a lot of them, I'm like, holy cow, we're over parked on them. So very insignificant amount of traffic. It varies, it's steady all day long, but it's not like during the peak hours we had to do a traffic study or anything because they're under that threshold.
Thank you.
And if somebody chose not to use the shared ingress egress and wanted to use the one that was farther east, does it pose a significant danger? Is that a dangerous driveway to drive out onto our city street?
I'm not going to say that anything's dangerous or anything. There hasn't been really a significant amount of accidents at that particular location. There's accidents along that corridor, but they're on both sides of the street. We do have a city project that we're undergrounding all the lines in that area, and with that, we concurrently are working to, at least now, also provide the funding to be able to widen the street at the same time. The applicant is going to fund a portion of it's in his conditions of approval, they're going to provide a funding to fund their frontage improvements for the widening project.
We have another applicant next door that's working the same way. We want, we got a lot of balls that we're juggling, and we want them all to come together and work the same way. So that's where our challenge is. But that corridor is a challenge. I have a tree on the Glory to God site that's a challenge with line of sight as well too. So.
Do you have an expected start date?
Due to budget rearrangements, it's probably going to be pushed back a year, but we're looking and anticipating hopefully we can get this started next year, in 2025.
Thank you. City Clerk, anyone else?
Next speaker is Carrie Driggs. Okay. John, is it Soler? Solier, okay.
Happy Valentine's Day, Council and Mr. Mayor. I would be in an Italian restaurant listening to Bella Noce right now, and my wife Sarah Lone, I believe, probably upset. A couple points of clarification.
Stand close to the microphone, John.
A couple points of clarification. When you do read the state law, when it identifies particular facilities that there should be 600 feet, the preamble to that is all about protecting youth from exposure. And then they specify these are specific youth type facilities that are absolutely a no. But the spirit of that is protecting youth from exposure. We have youth from pre-K childcare through sixth grade classes during religious services and youth facility where youth group occurs. When we were on Perez Road, after I think just before we began donating property to the city for their overflowing police department before this facility was built, we had a K through 6 school because under our 501c3 we can have a school. And it begs the question, if a cannabis facility is approved next to us with this level of traffic of children, does that meet the spirit of even what the city wants at the gateway of your city, next to the cathedral, with children there on a regular basis?
What do you assume the children will be exposed to?
Well, you asked the state of California that. They're exposed to the messaging.
You.
Okay, well, I'm not the state. I didn't create the law, but I can tell you what the spirit of it is.
You used it, so I wondered if you
They
had
don't
personal
want children
concerns.
being exposed to anything to do with the messaging or the facilities of drug use. An epidemic in our country at current, and they are concerned, even our liberal state looks at the exposure of children even seeing a marijuana dispensary facility, the way they're dressed up, the way they're inviting. In fact, you can't even put a billboard in California, I believe it's 1,000 feet from one of those facilities. 1,000 feet, they don't even want a billboard. And you want to put a facility 60 feet from our building, please. Now, there's one greater issue that maybe we're not getting clarity on from the city engineer. I did look at state law, and I did look at federal highway administration. Under federal highway administration, the line of sight for a safe access on that highway at 45 miles an hour, looking to the left, 500 feet. California State, it's over 600 feet. The line of sight on that eastern driveway is 170 feet. Now, as far as the CUP for the church, I would like to have that see that. Frankly, my understanding from communication with our staff was that that driveway and those improvements were extended to drop down that hill to control water flowing off the upper driveway that drops down, not to create a perpetual access to our driveway. And by the way, access through our driveway isn't access to parking. That's a whole different animal. I have no record of any approval of a perpetual agreement for ingress-egress through our property. It's just not there that I've seen. I'm happy to look at it. We're happy to look at it. If it is, great. But until then, there has got to be a way to protect our congregants, our kids, our people that are going back and forth from services now, maybe more services in the future. We have a right to be there. We've been in this community. I've been at that church for 40 years, man. And we want to see those protections. I'm going to come back to one of your questions. I don't care what kind of store it is. Now that we've looked at this line of sight issue, You've got the Sunliner pulling away. We couldn't build our building without completing those frontage improvements, full street width. And if you don't want to deny this outright, I got to tell you, there is no safe way to leave that driveway until that frontage is completely widened. It's just not possible. Right now, the conditions say, well, you can give us an in lieu of payment. We'll get to it someday. Oh, wait, it's just going to be pushed off a year. Just you heard this now. No, in lieu of payments, I worked 25 years in public sector, including over a development department. I know how it works. The in lieu of payment isn't going to protect people traveling east on Highway 111 at 45 miles an hour when that person's pulling out with 170 feet. It is just not possible. That's why the California and federal standards are what they are, 500 feet and over 600 feet. So there's a lot of problems. My concern is some of those people pulling out there are going to be people that are going out of the driveway that we specifically had to build one way at Golf Club or Crosley, that then sweeps around onto 111. You're hitting the gas, you're coming up to speed to get to 45, wham, you're around that blind corner, and there you got somebody pulling out of this facility. I don't think the city should permit anything there until that frontage is fixed. And that's on you, frankly. And if you do want to permit that, the first time there is an accident, and there's quite a few accidents between the two lights, if you do want to permit that, and now we've told you that the line of sight is that deficient on public record, that's on you. And they're required to indemnify you. That doesn't indemnify you. Frankly, if one of our people pulls out and gets in a wreck because you didn't listen to this issue, regardless of whether it's cannabis or tile or whatever, I'm going to say, well, you know, the city approved that, even though in public comment we warned them that this was unsafe. The state of California said it's unsafe. The federal government said it's unsafe. It's all on you, folks. So you can have at it, do what you want. They can move next door. We think it's completely an incompatible use. We spent millions, not hundreds of thousands, to change the design of that building from something that none of you were here for to the cathedral that you now see. We spent millions. On the request of my friend, former Deputy City Manager Julie Balmer, who challenged us to do something more as a gateway. And now you want to put a retail pot shop. Come on. It just doesn't fit. It's incompatible with the neighborhood. Look at your ordinance again. I will give you the section. Section Ordinance 800, Section 5.88.045A. The local licensing authority, oh, no wonder I can't see. Mark, see, look, I'm right with you, man. The local licensing authority may place conditions upon the approval of any local license which are, in the opinion of the local licensing authority, reasonably related to the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood, number one, in which the proposed licensed premises to be located, and the general public. Are you going to tell me that 170 feet of sight on a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, which, by the way, nobody goes 45. Your guys could probably pick tickets all day there. Are you going to tell me that falling over 300 feet short of that line of sight is going to be as safe for the general public? Do you think people coming and going from our services, people pulling out of their parking lot, you don't think a little kid might be running down the steps and run across that parking lot when somebody thinks it's just another option to get there or to leave? By the way, that eastern exit is dangerous. The patrons of that shop are going to see that it's dangerous, and you know what that's going to force them to do? Go through our driveway to get to the one that's not dangerous. Do the frontage improvements, protect our property from encroachment unless we do have an agreement that's not just about water control. And do this right, city. Mr. Gregory, you said growing pains earlier. I have been over the planning department as a deputy city manager. You know where most growing pains come from? Bad decisions from planning commissions, and councils that don't look thoroughly at a project and leave it go. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Thanks, John. City Clerk, anyone else like to speak?
Carrie.
Hi.
Hello.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council. I think I should have gone first. You might have been nicer. I've been attending church at Glory to God Ministries for about 36 years. I teach. I've done everything from the infants and, you know, all of the different children. Right now I work with the 4 to 8 year olds. Have 4 of my own who are now grown, but we would go out into the parking lot, and if I wasn't an octopus at times, my kids would, they're kids. They run. They see something, their ball rolls, stuff happens. When you come around, we have, as has been said, we have a west and an east entrance. The west entrance, basically you come through the light and you turn in, that's pretty good. Leaving there is difficult because traffic is moving very quickly. I usually wait for a red light before I go. I never turn left. And I have seen car parts, and I've actually seen a car centered on the sidewalk before when we came into church. I have seen multiple accidents, or obviously there was something because there were car parts left when we went to church. So it is a difficult area as far as traffic goes. People are going to be coming into our east entrance because they don't realize there's another entrance. They're going to think that entrance is the entrance. So then they're going to come into our property, and when you go down to where the proposed is, they're going to have a lot of damage to bumpers. I don't know if you went that way, but you go down, and if you don't inch your way down, you're going to bottom out. It's not a driveway. I didn't realize it was for water, but it's definitely not a driveway. So the people that are coming in are either, if they've come before, they may park in our area. If they haven't come before, they're probably going to have, at the very least, scraped bumpers. Not the best for your clientele if you want your people happy when they walk in, and not safe for our children because there will be more traffic coming in. And I foresee probably people parking there, if they have gone down that hill before, parking in our spaces and walking to the facility and walking back. And that's wear and tear on our property. It's a safety hazard because some people have places that they park every week when they come to church, and some of those have younger children, and it's right there, right by the parking spot. And it's not assigned parking, but they just kind of always go there. The kids get out, run up the stairs. Well, they run down the stairs afterwards, and they'll run around the vehicles. So it is a safety hazard. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
City Clerk, anyone else like to speak?
Al Franz?
Former chief.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council, Members Council. My name is Al Franz. I'm a former resident of this city for over 50 years. I recently moved, and I head up the security over at Glory to God Ministries. You know, it's pretty much everything has been said. You know, from a public safety impact, you know, dispensaries will have an impact. It will have a public safety impact, no matter how you slice it. I mean, I've dealt with it. I was a police chief in Palm Springs. I did 30 years of service there, and I've seen it. And mostly it's unreported. They call after the fact. Now the applicant will get up here and he'll say, well, you know what, we can mitigate that by having an armed security guard on site. Well, Mr. Gregory, you know, Chief Crum knows, an armed security guard is not like a trained police officer. And they're not there to shoo away the homeless or the transients or the unhoused or whatever. You know, they're there to prevent a robbery. That's what they're there for. If they were just there to do the others, they wouldn't be armed, period. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when this happens. And, you know, I can tell you, you can read about it all over the place. It's just a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. Pretty much the classrooms to Glory to God Ministries, where the children are, go to class, are within 60 feet of the building there, of the other building. Now, the applicant says there won't be any consumption there. Okay. But I've driven around to liquor stores, on my patrol time, even on my civilian time. You drive by liquor stores, you drive by the AM, PM markets, wherever beer or alcohol or alcoholic beverages are sold. I've seen it many times. They're sitting on the side of the store or in the back of the store drinking a beer, because that's what they do, right? I could see this happening there very easily. They'll get their product, they may smoke it in the parking lot. That exposes the children, It's the children that we have to really safeguard, not only for us. If you look right across the street, directly across the street, what is there? Boomers. Children all over the place, They're in their go-karts. They're there. Go down to a couple businesses east. Stuffed pizza or upper crust pizza. Used to be stuffed. Children there all the time. If we really want to safeguard the children, as the state says, 600 feet away, from schools and playgrounds and children, because they don't want them exposed to this stuff, that's exactly what this thing will do. This dispensary, it'll expose not only our kids that go to the church, boomers, and down the street at Upper Crust, where there's always children there. There's little leagues and soccer folks that take their kids there for lunch after the season, or so there is children all over the place. I'll leave you with this, because it's already been said. I'm not going to draw it out anymore. But, as John's pointed out, public safety does go with y'all. You lay down the law, and then the chief has to do what he has to do. Just keep the kids in mind, number one, if not for us, across the street and down the way. See, the way I look at it is ABC, or alcohol beverage control in the state of California, does not allow alcohol sales or liquor sales within the vicinity of a church. Yet marijuana dispensaries can. The bottom line is they both alter the mind. Doesn't matter. They're both mind-altering substances. But because one is called medicine, it can be sold. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief.
Brad Anderson.
Good evening, Brad Anderson, City of Ransom Ross. Everything's been said. I hope you either deny this project or uphold the planning committee recommendation. I just can't, like was said before, that is a focus point. I seen that construction when it went in 100 years ago. I don't know how long ago. But anyway, I can't say any more. That's already been said. I have written comments. Oops, I'm sorry. One of my concerns is that I've seen this councilor consider other appeals, Food for Less, gas station, one of them, and that concerned me. That's really what brought me here today, and the questioning of one of the council members. I'm worried. Hopefully, it's a common sense issue, and hopefully you can judge this by common sense and protect the youth. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Mayor, I don't have any other requests to speak forms, but if you are a member of the public and you would like to provide comment on this item, please raise your hand. I don't see any hands raised.
It says here, any additional comments? Do I bring anybody else that wants to speak again?
Any member of the council can bring somebody up to inquire about questions if you have them. Yes, sir.
All right, so.
Question, yeah.
Was there going to be an opportunity for the applicant to rebut anything? Did you not?
You can certainly, I would suggest that you do that now, and then if you have questions, you can bring people up. And if you're going to bring people up to answer your questions, I suggest you keep the public hearing open until you're done with that, okay?
Chris, would you like to do any rebuttal?
Sure. Thank you, council members. Yeah, we don't have much to say in response to this. At the Planning Commission meeting, they kind of had the similar presentation, and it kind of, ended up becoming more of a meeting about the church over there. And that's fine. I understand the reasonable concerns. Some of the items that we're doing, all we can do is just mitigate some of those concerns. We are dealing with the planting out front. Right now, the planting is bad coming out of that east driveway, and we're going to make that much lower. We're taking out the trees, doing some nice groundwork in there. So, you got the 30-inch high restriction so that you can see out over the top of it, down the road further as far as you can. It's going to be softened when they ultimately get the right-of-way widened out there, so it'll be a slightly better solution. It was, when we were looking for the paperwork in regards to that mutual easement, we did happen to have a letter from the pastor requesting mutual access to that site on a prior project. So it's just kind of interesting. It's the use that's really bothering them.
Thank you, Chris. John, Bruce, anything more to say? I think we're good. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to have a clarification from one of our staff. Okay. When you're ready, I'm just going to ask staff. No? Okay. John or Andy, you flip a coin. I need to have a better understanding of what you define, because to me this has come down to the safety of the curve in the road. So can you please, one side says it's absolutely detrimental, that there will be lives lost. The other side says, we don't think it's that big of a deal, we're going to get to it in a year. So can you just sort of ground me on this, please?
Well, one of the things, there was actually a good slide in the presentation, and where's Sandra's presentation?
Sandra's going to get it for you.
Thank you. Okay. So this project, because they're pulling back the right-of-way, we've agreed that they would put some real minimal temporary right-of-way where the street will be widening, or landscaping. They're going to put some real low-level landscaping and things that could be ripped out. They're going to have the sidewalk location where the future sidewalk location will be, so they're going to leave space for that. That'll be included in the project. So everything they're doing is going to clean out their frontage on the line of sight. Obviously, we have power poles that are impeding that. And the one thing I'll say that we have a challenge with right now also is the fact there's a huge tree right here that's not on the property that is actually impeding the line of sight. So I'm going to have to deal with that. But I wasn't going to deal with that till after this project kind of cleaned up the right-of-way.
So I don't think that specifically answered my question, though. I need to know what the level of concern is for that to be a dangerous corner ingress.
I can't determine what's dangerous.
Nor can
All I can say is this whole corner area has been existing since the city's been here. Every project that's come along has improved it. We have lots of areas of the cities that get improved as development occurs. So these driveways in there have been there to service the businesses when they were active or not. We had the Dancing Greek restaurant there that was an ice skating rink at one time also as well. I had a lot of uses. They're all using those same driveways. So we're here now, we're looking at those uses, and I don't see it being any different than before.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I'll close the public hearing.
Mayor, can you speak into your mic?
I'm sorry?
Can you speak into your mic, please?
I'm sorry. You told me to I don't listen too well. At this time, I will close the public hearing. Thank you. All right, who's going to be going first here? Is anybody? Let me see here. Ernesto Gutierrez, Councilmember Gutierrez.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, after listening to all the speakers and after visiting the property on my own earlier today, Councilwoman Ross just mentioned what is the safety exiting that property. There's no opinion. It is not if, but when there will be an accident at that exit. It is extremely dangerous. I had the patience to wait until I make sure that the light had turned red and there was no vehicles driving. This is without me having any knowledge of what was going to be said. This was just mental notes that I took while I was exiting that place. It's not if, but when it will happen. Now, besides that, even though our city does not specifically state what is, or it specifically states in a very lower level what a school, what a daycare center is, what everything else is, the spirit of the law is there, and I do not feel comfortable at all, like our former chief, Al Frank said, that there's liquor stores that sell liquor that are not allowed to sell within 1,000 feet. We have a cannabis business that wants to sell within 60 feet. So the spirit of the law, I do not feel comfortable at all approving this. Besides the safety and other issues, I will feel guilt to actually do this to our community and the neighborhood, and like it was mentioned earlier, to a lot of little ones and other people that visit the businesses. And I didn't even think about it, but Boomers right across the street. That is right. I used to take my stepkids there all the time. I used to take my stepkids all the time to stuffed beets in the past. And I did go by that area quite often. I don't want to admit it, but I also did used to go to Pompey's as well back in the day. So I just will not feel comfortable supporting this project, especially with the street improvements not being completed. If the street improvements would be completed, it might change my opinion. I'm not sure, but definitely that became a huge concern after I visited the property myself. And if any of the council members wish to go by there, it might be a little too late, but it is not an opinion as to how dangerous it is. It is extremely dangerous. From 1 to 10, it's absolutely a 10 how dangerous it is to exit that particular business, or what would be a particular business if approved. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Hey, Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could I provide some guidance for the council just to make sure we come up with a decision that's well supported? Any of your decisions have to be supported by substantial evidence in the record. That means the documents that are before you, the testimony that you've heard, and based on facts, not opinion, and based on the adopted law, not the spirit of the law. And in that case, that means following our municipal code. Now, you do have the authority to approve this or deny it or modify it, but we'll have to rely on facts to justify that. If you were to deny it, for example, the standard in your code says that we've got to make written findings that show substantial evidence in the review of the whole record to justify the denial. Same thing with the appeal. The facts that council member just articulated about his experience with the danger of the driveway is something that you could consider. Moral opposition to cannabis use, not a substantial fact, although your ordinance does allow you to consider whether a use is going to be detrimental to a neighboring use. But we'd have to articulate some facts.
You said it would be detrimental to what?
Yeah, your ordinance does allow you to consider whether this use would be detrimental to other uses, whether it be surrounding residential uses or to the church. But we'd have to articulate facts that make it detrimental. We can't use supposition. I know the former police chief gave some good points that all family members are concerned about with their children, but those are hypothetical. We don't know that those are going to exist. If we had some facts of that, you could consider that. Obviously, traffic, impacts on the environment, the way the site is laid out are things that you could consider. So I would suggest that if you are supporting the project or denying a project, we need to think in terms of these facts, not just our feelings, because we want to have a supportable decision at the end of the day, because it's likely to be challenged by either of the parties. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no more speakers in the queue. You want to go? Okay,
So, this is another one of those difficult ones that comes in front of us, mixing a lot of communities' values versus the law, versus moral values, versus all kinds of things. So I spent much of my life not necessarily, or at least, not necessarily being a fan of cannabis. So I appreciate the city attorney's initial comments, because part of what I always have to struggle to do is to set all of that aside and look at this as if it was any other business. I think when I was running originally, I used to say, well, I just pretend like they're flower shops, and then try to base decisions on, well, what are the factors, what are the trash, what are the nuisance, what are those type of things. And that's worked very well for me. So I, of course, appreciate and think it's worth noting the issues with traffic in this area and cars going fast and having to pull out onto a road where cars are going fast. But frankly, that exists all over every city in the world. So I think it's important that we do, and the applicant and staff try to take what steps they can to mitigate that. But I don't think the thought that there could be an accident here is enough to say, well, that nobody can build anything in this building because there might be an accident, because I don't think we'd be building very many things anywhere. So I can't really give that a lot of weight. And as far as the use, I can understand why the neighbor doesn't necessarily want this type of business there, but it is a legal business in that area. So if something was going to be done to change those rules, it should be approached beforehand and not just wait until something happens. So I find myself perplexed because I'm not necessarily in love with this use there. I'm not necessarily in love with the piece or the way the situation is, but this is something that we faced all over. And we don't take vacant businesses and say they can't be used for anything because of the way they're configured the road. We just try to work to make sure that we mitigate those and make them better for the future, which sounds like what we have done, what the applicant's willing to do, and what the city, frankly, is going to do. Although, as we often see in frustration, we want everything fixed now, and it takes some period of time to do so. So I am willing to, for the sake of discussion, to make a motion that we affirm the CUP, we grant the variance, we add a condition that there will be no consumption lounge on site. And then if I made a motion, so I don't know if somebody wants to make a second on that motion or for discussion, or if it's just going to die.
I'd like to open it for discussion.
Open for discussion.
All right, and I'm not the mayor right now, but I think somebody needs to make a decision whether they're going to at least second that motion right now, and then you could have discussion and change it and
I
amend
will
it.
second your motion.
We do roll call?
No, we're
So-
going to have discussion.
So there's a first and a second. Now there's this.
So I appreciate everybody's comments tonight. I know that they are heartfelt. I know that they're about your your business, your income. I know it's about your church. I know it's about our streets. There's a lot of conflicting ideas and goals for this property. But cannabis is a legal substance. It's not something that chases you or harms you. If it is, as an adult you decide to consume off premises, that's in the privacy of your own home or where it's legally allowed, I believe that's an adult's decision, not mine to make. I also think by not having a consumption lounge, you are making this about as low impact as any cannabis facility could be anywhere in our city. And I commend you for being willing to do that. I know that was a sticking point, and sometimes that's the bone that you give, and I do appreciate that. And I'm going to keep it as simple as those two things, and confidence in our staff that they say that this is not as horrifically dangerous a street as perhaps it has been asserted. And for those three reasons, I also propose that we move forward with approval of the conditional use permit.
All right, thank you. My main concern is the 170-foot line of sight there. And then, if I understand, John, what you said is they're going to give X amount of money to go to build somewhere else, some down the road, so they don't have to widen the road. Is that correct? Maybe I misunderstood there. What amount of money is?
No, they're going to contribute, to be clear, they're going to contribute to our project a lump sum. I think it's like 60 or 65,000 of what their frontage improvements would be to pull back the curb and gutter line for that portion. The MUP project that exists today, they're going to still end up paying that MUP fee that would contribute to lowering that. That's going to happen either way. Our project is on top of that to widen the street. They've opted to contribute to that.
Okay, so with this motion here, do they have to widen? Is the road still going to be widened?
The city will widen.
City's going
When we do the city project,
when will it be done? Widen it.
as we said, we're targeting, try getting something going by the first part of 2025. Right now, we're really under budget constraints. That's about it.
So if we're still under budget constraints, then they can push it back a couple more years then.
We're going to figure out how to make it work. The MUP funds are there.
Yeah.
So it's optimal to do the widening at the same time. Okay. So we got contribution here, working with another applicant that's working on the site next door. They may be making some wholesale changes and improvements on the frontage as well. Looking at other infrastructure improvements that just going to make the project pretty attractive for the city to get done.
All right, thanks. Contrary to Mayor Pro Tem, I lived on Broadmoor for 24 years, so I've traveled that street many, many times, and that is a busy, busy street. So if you leave Broadmoor going east, you're doing 55, 60. When you hit that corner, you're still speeding. So it's a very dangerous exit right there. And I could see parishioners leaving and customers coming in, and there's going to be a log there. They're going to be stopping in the middle of the street. I don't think until this whole road is widened, they should do anything on that building. I'm sorry. I'm concerned about the safety of that corner and the congestion that it's going to bring on busy, busy days. So with that being said, you want to do a vote by electronic or?
Yeah, you should be able to. If Councilmember Gregory, do you have a screen?
It's out there. Come on.
Is it working?
Well, I'm not the mover. You were the mover.
I can fix them, the first and the second.
I just thought they were all stuck, and so I moved forward.
So there was a motion by Councilmember Gregory and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Ross, and the motion fails 2-2.
I would move that we table this matter and have it returned when the full council is present.
I agree.
I'm fine with me. That's what,
Council, is your motion going to be to reopen the public hearing? The problem is, unfortunately, not that we don't want to go through this again, but Councilmember Lamb won't have heard any of the public testimony, so she can certainly listen to it, and that would be sufficient, but it's up to you whether you want to continue.
Yeah, if that's the proper motion, then I would move that we reopen the public hearing and continue to a future date when
well,
further council can be present.
Isn't it up to the applicant to refile, or? I mean,
No, no, the motion
why would we
motion
bring it back
failed. The motion failed. You haven't denied the project. You'd have to adopt a motion to deny the project. And so somebody could make that motion.
Okay.
But it would require 3 affirmative votes. You have to have 3 affirmative votes to do anything.
In all fairness, I won't make that motion. I hope council doesn't make that motion until we have a full council, and then we could revisit it then.
Well, that's what I thought would be better
Okay.
than just keep going back and forth.
And we certainly, I mean, for everybody out there, we certainly know that Rita Lamb is a diligent council member. I'm sure she'll listen to all of this if she isn't listening now.
No pressure.
No.
All right, thank you very much.
But that's
Okay.
just a motion. So.
I'm sorry?
It's a motion and we have to second it.
Yeah, so there is a motion on the floor to reopen the public hearing, correct?
And to continue.
And to continue it to
A future date.
a specific date, right?
When you have all 5 council members.
When you have all 5 council members.
Okay. Everybody
At the
agree to
first
that?
opportunity to have 5 council members.
So we have a motion, we need a second.
I don't know, I made the motion, am I now making the second?
I'll second. Who made the motion?
Well, I did, but I didn't think I was supposed to.
So that vote is
ahead.
gone. We're going to do a roll call vote. Councilmember Gregory made a motion to reopen the public hearing to a future date when all 5 council members are here. So now I need a second.
Second.
Okay, so we have a second by Mayor Pro Tem. Now I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Gregory?
Yes.
Councilmember Gutierrez? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Ross?
Yes?
Mayor Carnevale? Thank you.
And Tracy, you're still my hero.
What would we do without you?
And there's an exodus.
You know, can we take a 5-minute break? All right, thank you. 5 minutes?
Excuse me, John?
Because it took up parking spaces. You know? I think it's your fault, John.
Okay. Good to go?
Yeah, it's your fault.
Did your computer die?
It did. It's been like, I don't even have to like.
Good to go? All right. Back in session, and now legislative actions. Northgate Community Church 2024 Run for Refugee 5K SUP.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Ryan Hunt will present this item, and actually he'll present the next two items, so I won't introduce them separately, and I'll just let him go from one to the other if that's all right with you all. Go ahead, Ryan.
Use permits for your approval. Both, I think you're familiar with at least the organizations. The Run for Refugees 5K, which you all approved as a council last year, wants to do the same event this year, a little bit different date, but Northgate's 5K Run and Walk is being organized to raise money for the millions of refugees displaced in Ukraine. And the setup would be at 5 a.m. on Saturday, April 13th, 2024, obviously at Northgate Church. The run starts at 7:30 and will wrap by 9 a.m., which is the same hours as last year. The event organizers will also have trash and recycling bins on site. A nurse will be on site on standby for any emergencies. The event does not require any road closures and will use the bike lane on 30th using cones. And Northgate Church gets their insurance through USATF and will have a liability policy also naming Cathedral City, which is a requirement of their SUP. Then you've seen the 5K map and route, but I'll show it to you again this year, as you can see, over by Northgate Church. And it is the staff recommendation to approve the special use permit for Northgate Church's Run for Refugees 5K on April 13th. And Mr. Greg Klein, the event organizer, appreciate his patience being with us tonight for the SUP. And so he is here if you have any specific questions that I can't answer, but really appreciate your time.
No, it doesn't really affect the area, but hopefully that red flash at 30th and Daypon will be a distant memory by this time.
Yes, I hope so too.
We don't touch that intersection anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't, but the traffic backs up a little bit, not on the side you're on, but I'm just kind of jabbing Public Works over here and saying hopefully that'll be, not really jabbing because they're not doing it, but reminding.
And it was actually prompted by council last year. I do feel the need to mention we did sponsor the special use application fee last year, so I wanted to put that forth as an option for you all as a council as well, but that is obviously up to you.
So, well, if that's proposed, what would we get in return as far as what is?
We have name on the back of the shirt. I brought some shirts for you guys too over there.
And you have it. You have our name or logo on those?
On the back of the shirt.
Oh, okay, all right.
You did it last time. Mr. Carnival actually was, I don't know if he was mayor last time we were here, but congratulations. But yeah, he sponsored it for us.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Well, then, for the sake of discussion, I'd move approval with us making the okay. Yeah.
There's nobody here, but City Clerk, there's any public comment?
I will. I do not have any request to speak forms, but if you are a member of the public and you wish to provide public comment, please raise your hand.
No comments?
All right, I move approval and just add that we sponsor the event by the waiving of the application fee.
Thank you, council member.
You're going to hit the button?
It doesn't matter. She'll fix it.
Okay.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Gregory and a second by Councilmember Ross, and the motion carries all ayes with Councilmember Lamb being absent.
Brian, 2024 Color the Spectrum Art Festival?
Yes, absolutely. We've got the Autism Society of Inland Empire with us, Juanita Hernandez, who's been a great partner for the city. They did the Autism Acceptance Walk in the amphitheater, which you all approved as a council, and so they're proposing to do an event in each season, in the spring and the fall, and this one's their Color the Spectrum Art Festival, obviously a great cause, and so I'll go through. The Autism Society of Inland Empire's Color the Spectrum Festival is scheduled, proposed for your approval, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday, Saturday, April 6th. The organization is requesting the use of the Cathedral City Community Amphitheater at the nonprofit rate. The event features youth and adult artists on the range with a marketplace featuring entrepreneurs on the spectrum. So attendees can purchase art pieces. It's great for supporting their artistic ventures and promoting their financial independence. And there were some educational components at the acceptance walk that were similar to that, kind of being able to support their artistic vision. So the Autism Society serves families all across both Riverside and San Bernardino counties in the Inland Empire. Currently, that's a total of more than 17,500 children and adults combined in both regions who need the support and education on the many issues that their families face. And so the Autism Society, their mission continues to be to create connections, empowering everyone in the autism community with the resources needed to live fully. And I do have to compliment the event organizer and the applicant. They left zero trash, were incredibly they were great in their approach with the amphitheater of making sure that everything was pristine when they left, and they were good caretakers of a venue that obviously we've invested a lot in. So I really appreciate that, and always want to give shout out to those applicants that are hopeful repeat performers here for the amphitheater. Nonprofit functions, according to our special use permit policy, are $2,500 a day in the amphitheater with a $1,000 security deposit to rent the community amphitheater. And I mentioned the organization's goal, but in addition to the marketplace, the event also will include several art-related activities, arts and crafts, face painting, bubble art, chalk art. So it should be a lot of fun, and attendees can enjoy music and performances while indulging in food that'll be on site and other family fun activities. And so 100% of the funds raised through this event go directly back into the organization to help provide those critical resources that we mentioned. This is a map and layout at 2 years in a row, very detailed, very helpful, frankly, to have this as an event organizer and communications and events department in the city. You can see it's a very similar layout to the autism acceptance event. We have consulted with them on some site tours and visits about where the best place is for food tents and all of that. So they've been a great partner to be able to take our expertise and apply it to their event as well. So with that, our staff recommendation is to approve the special use permit and allow the Autism Society Inland Empire's Color the Spectrum Art Festival to utilize the amphitheater that would be on Saturday, April 6th, 2024. And with that, I'll answer any questions, or Juanita, I'm sure, will be happy to answer anything I can't answer.
Any questions? Public comment?
I don't have any request to speak forms, but if you're a member of the public and you wish to provide public comment on this item, please raise your hand. If you wouldn't mind, come forward and just state your name for the record.
I just did want to say thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I just did want to add.
Hold the mic down.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
No, I'm short.
You're fine.
People problems. I just did want to add, I think maybe there was a miscommunication. This is actually not a fundraiser. It is a free public event for everyone is welcome. It's an inclusive event. It's a great way for us to also highlight autism awareness and acceptance in the community. And I just want to add that we've had such a great, excellent experience with the city with our walk that we were just so eager to come back and be able to partner with you guys again. And the amphitheater works so perfectly for our community. It's enclosed, and I can't tell you what that means to a lot of our families who have elopers or children who run. And so it's such a safe space. And I know they felt so safe there and very prideful that, that you guys were able to, make that commitment to us and help support it. So I just want to say that it is a free event, and we actually are able to, we have the support right now. We had some funding to be able to provide it as a free event also through Bighorn Cares and the Champions Volunteer Foundation, who are funding part of the program, backing it up. So thank you.
Nathaniel, just a quick question. How long has the Autism Society Inland Empire, how long have they been?
So we've been in existence since 1986. Okay. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with we used to be formerly the Coachella Valley Autism Society, SAVASA. I don't know if this sounds familiar. During the pandemic, we were kind of going under, and we reached out to our sister organization, Autism Society Inland Empire, and so we merged the organization. So we serve all of Riverside County, as Ryan stated, parts of San Bernardino County. So that includes the Coachella Valley. And we've been doing that since 2021.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Gordon?
Now, do you serve kids of all ages, people of all ages?
We do. We serve, I think our oldest client is 80 years old. So autism is a lifelong journey, and we meet families where they're at. We get calls, as young as 18 months, and like I said, all the way to 80 years old. And so we really like to meet families where they're at, and part of what we do is that systems navigation, depending on wherever they're at in their journey or in life. We really do our due diligence and our best to support them in that moment. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Juanita. Appreciate the clarification. I think free is even better than charged admission, so want to appreciate that clarification.
Make a motion to approve.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a motion by Councilmember Gutierrez and a second by Councilmember Gregory, and the motion carries all ayes with Councilmember Lamb being absent.
Okay, thank you. Hello, man. We're going to talk about the strategic plan update and adoption. Sorry.
Best for last. Good evening, Mayor, Council members. So the item before you is going to be an update on our strategic plan. So as you know, the 5-year strategic plan was adopted on April 12th, 2023. And on January 27th, 2024, the city's leadership team met with the City Council in a day-long workshop to review the plan, see where we've been, and to set our goals for the coming year. The council during that meeting received a financial overview of the city's mid-year fiscal position, and the city manager and members of our executive team provided updates on our collective efforts to meet the strategic plan goals, guided by the following questions. We looked at, over the past year, what has your department accomplished that you and your team has been most proud of, and what factors contributed to your success? And we heard, I think, really great stories of the progress that the departments have made over the past year. We also looked at what has been the challenges. What were the biggest internal or external factors that impeded your department from achieving your goals and objectives? And certainly the impacts of Tropical Storm Hilary affected just about all departments in the city, whether it was from their time to spend on other efforts or just the financial burden that is put on the city. But that really was a major influencer across all departments. And then lastly, we looked at what key initiatives will be focused on by the departments for over the next year. Staff provided comment about whether their efforts were going to still align with the goals and objectives outlined in the 5-year plan, or did they need to shift based on current circumstances. And for the most part, staff were still aligned with where the plan was and where it's going, with a few small exceptions. So after the staff's presentations, and the City Council had the opportunity to weigh in, going through a similar exercise, which then led into the discussion of the future goals. And I think what was, for me, really, I think a very positive outcome of that day was the continued strong alignment between the City Council's, staff's, and the community's goals. And this really does allow us, I think, collectively to better navigate those challenges, the ups and downs that come, to seize opportunities to help us continue to meet our goals and focus on that desired future together that we've outlined over the next 5 years. So some of the proposed changes that have been incorporated into this update. So prior to our 5-year strategic plan workshop, the City Council had heard a report from the City Manager, and they voted to support recommendations by the Resident Advisory Committee to find ways to secure ongoing revenues that would allow the city to join the Desert Recreation District, develop a community center, address capital improvements in the city's road and infrastructure, and improve fire department services, including responses to the increasing number of medical calls for service. And so support for a funding initiative has been incorporated into the update. Additionally, during that presentation, our new Development Services Director, Firestein, outlined resources needed to address a strategic plan objective of completing a comprehensive update to the city's zoning and business codes. This is something that's been on the books for a while, and it really, as staff have been really digging into how we've been doing business and how we want to be doing business, particularly in the development services area. One of the fundamental challenges of moving forward is just some really obsolete sections of our plan. It hasn't been updated in a while. Some of it's just very old and just really not contemporary with, I think, where the city's going. So we do need to make some wholesale improvements there. And then additionally, pursuant to AB 1332, the city needs to develop a program of pre-approved accessory dwelling unit plans. And so staff currently are working on ways to identify potential funding sources, hopefully funding sources, not general fund funding sources, to fund these initiatives. And we actually have some good progress that we will bring back later for the council's approval. During that discussion, the City Council also recommended some additional updates. During the meeting, Mayor Carnevale asked for prioritization of resources to continue to support economic development. Mayor Pro Tem Ross asked staff to explore having an annual or biannual joint meeting between the City Council and the Agua Caliente Band of Kuya Indians Tribal Council, or this could be a 2-on-2 meeting with Tribal Council members and City Council members. Also requested working with a historical society to digitize and preserve historic photos and documents, and to commission a survey of historic properties in the city.
Can I just correct that? So
Yeah.
my first preference would be that we actually took possession of our historical documents, but if they did not want to give them to us, digitizing this kind of stuff.
Councilmember Gutierrez, during the meeting, requested that staff explore the use of volunteers by code enforcement and research prior goal-setting documents that had been adopted previously to provide a review of accomplishments to make sure that those previous goals had been accomplished. Pardon me. Councilmember Gregory requested that the residential parking standards, including parking in front of mailboxes and front yard parking, or the standards of what can be parked on, et cetera, kind of a broad variety of residential parking standards, be prioritized in advance of the full zoning code update. And also asked staff to work with community organizations to identify and establish a cooling center within Cathedral City for this summer. We're the only city currently, I think, in the Coachella Valley that doesn't have an established cooling center within our jurisdiction. And then lastly, Councilmember Lamb echoed staff's support of the resources to update the city's zoning code and the importance of the city joining the Desert Recreation District to provide programming for the community. And so all of these additional items have been incorporated into the updated strategic plan. During that discussion and previously with the council, we discussed a number of initiatives that had been identified in the strategic plan that hadn't yet had budget assigned to them. And as we've talked about the impacts from Tropical Storm Hilary, these were items that staff had identified needed to be delayed. And so these items, while still not budgeted in this current fiscal budget and the second half of our 2-year budget, we will look to provide funding for them in the budget proposal for the next fiscal year. And so those items included the facilities master plan, implementing issues identified in the facilities condition assessment, the creation of policies and procedures for maintenance of our facilities master plan, contributing our annual allocation to the facilities fund and to the equipment replacement fund, conducting the entryway monument study, implementing the IT master plan recommendations. The city staff and IT and all of the departments have been working with a consultant to create an IT master plan, identifying what are priority projects and investments that need to be made over the coming years. We will look at, when we get the recommendations, we will look at what we currently have identified in budget and probably reshuffle the deck a little bit to meet those priorities. And then we will also work to incorporate that into the future budgets. But most likely that is going to take longer than we maybe would hope for. And then lastly is to complete a compensation and classification study. The city hasn't done a full comp and class study for quite a number of years. So staff will bring back items that need budget adjustments or will include non-budgeted items in the budget request in the next biennial budget. And that was it. And I'm available for any questions.
Council, any questions? Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Anybody in the public?
It would appear that we have staff in the council chambers at
Okay.
this time,
All right.
and so.
Ready for a motion?
We have a motion by Councilmember Gutierrez and a second by Councilmember Gregory, and the motion carries all ayes with Councilmember Lamb being absent.
Thank you. Discussion on future agenda items. Any council member? We have Mayor Pro Tem Ross. You're welcome.
Seems like it's very fortuitous bringing this up tonight. But when I was
Can you
in
speak into your mic?
Coachella Valley the other day, Palm Desert was talking about how they became an autism-friendly city. They have a certificate saying that they are an that they are an autism-friendly or supportive city. I did not know that 1 in 37 children are born with autism. That's way more than I thought it was. And when we were having this conversation, I was listening to them talking about it. Indio said they're also in the process of the certification. And I would like to propose that we have somebody come and speak to us about what that looks like, what the commitment is, if there's a financial component, and how long it typically takes to get that certification throughout our departments.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I would support that. I know I'm concerned because I think there's a training component, but again, I don't know how extensive that is.
Yeah, there is.
So, and how much staff time that would take, and it may be a lot, it may be a little, but I think a discussion of that would be good.
Would we need a discussion, or maybe we could just meet up, two of us could just meet up with Wanda, or two?
Well, if we have, I think the suggestion that Mayor Pro Tem Ross made is going to be pretty easy for us to put forward on a future agenda, which is to have somebody who's an expert in that come and address us about what the process is, what it takes. Then, you'll have to make a decision on what we pursue in that. But first, we need to know what that is. So I think that's a good place to start, and I think we can arrange that as soon as we can get somebody to be able to come and do that.
And honestly, I don't know what the time frame is. I don't know what a financial expectation is. I listened to the conversation. I found it interesting, provocative, pertinent to today. And I would like to know more about it, but with no commitment.
Good. All right. Charlie, got the direction on that? Okay. Go ahead.
And this isn't really to come to council, but I thought this is a good place to bring it up. But I'd like to present to city management, if there's no objection, a request for a proclamation to celebrate Outdoor Workers Week, which is usually in July, in recognition of the perils and dangers of people that work outdoors in our heat. So we normally do proclamations. I don't think that needs to come back to city council, but I thought I'd throw that out. So if you see it, I thought that would be good for us to recognize this year. Okay, thank you.
And then, City Manager, you were going to bring forward something about time off this summer?
That is on our future agenda item schedule already. I think it's on March 13th.
Okay. So long we still have time to plan vacations. That's what I'm saying.
That was requested by Mayor Carnevale some time ago, and we've got that on the future agenda items.
Thank you. Anything else? Anybody? Okay. Let me see here. The next regular city council meeting will be held on February 28th, 24. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy.